with grant reception. All right, we're being recorded now. We're going to start with grant reception video. So take it away.
Hi, I'm Dick Carlton, Breckenridge Town Council. Thanks for joining us here today on this glorious day with snow flying. While the town is not required to support our nonprofits, we really believe it's the right thing to do, especially during these times. The council believes strongly that Breckenridge is given much. And as the stewards of this community, the town is honored to award over $256,000 cash in cash grants for 2022 to our very, very important nonprofits who really are the backbone of this community and so many things we do. In addition to the grants we're about to award, the town funds a scholarship for our Summit High seniors, as well as financially supports Breckenridge Creative Arts, Breckenridge Heritage Alliance, our early learning centers, preschools, and our town-wide marketing efforts via the Breckenridge Tourism Office.
Hey, thanks, Dick. Right you are. Hey, my name is Jeffrey Bergeron. I, too, am on the Breckenridge Town Council, though the council often doesn't admit to that. In addition to all the money that Dick just talked about, the $256K, we also provide $100,000 in in-kind service to the various entities, the nonprofits that really make our county flourish. It has been a tough year. We all know that. But these nonprofits make the county livable. And as long as we have snow and we have the nonprofits, I think we're going to do fine. In addition to all that, the town, also the 5 entities kick in to Building Hope, the FERC, and the Community Care Clinic from the nicotine tax. So for all you nonprofits, keep up the good work. It is an honor to support you.
Bethany Immigration Services, Blue River Horse Center, Blue River Watershed Group, the Breckenridge Outdoor Education Center.
Thank you, Town of Breckenridge, for your generous grant to the BOEC. You're helping us to create incredible opportunities for people with disabilities and special needs.
Thank you, Town of Breckenridge.
Breckenridge Elementary PTSA, Breck Film, Breck Backstage Theater, CASA of the Continental Divide, Colorado Learning Connections, CMC Foundation, Dillon Valley Elementary School, Education Foundation of the Summit, Father Dyer Church, Friends of the CAIC, High Country Conservation Center.
Hi, I'm Jen with the High Country Conservation Center. Thanks so much to the Town of Breck and to Breck Town Council for our grant. This year, your grant supports recycling for residents and businesses, as well as our Tame the Tap program, where we go into homes and help people conserve water.
Thanks, Town of Breck.
High Country Veterans Adventures, Mountain Dreamers, Mountain Mentors, Summit County, Mountain Scholars, Mountaintop Children's Museum,
The National Repertory Orchestra and the NRO, Northwest Colorado Center for Independence, Open Arms, Child Care and Preschool, Smart Bellies, SOS Outreach, Summit Advocates for Victims of Assault, Summit After Prom, Summit County Youth, Summit Habitat for Humanity, the Summit Huts Association, Summit Lost Pet Rescue, Summit Musicians Relief Fund, Summit Nordic Ski Club, Summit County Public Radio and TV, Team Breckenridge Sports Club.
Hi, I'm Kelly Sanders with Team Breckenridge. We would like to send a huge thank you to the Town of Breckenridge for the grant that they have provided to us. With that grant, we're able to provide scholarships to all of our great athletes here in Summit County. Thanks, Town of Breckenridge.
Thank you, Town of Breckenridge.
Team Summit, The Cycle Effect, Peak School, Timberline Adult Services, Youth Entity.
These final 2 grants are funded through the Open Space Fund. I've had the pleasure of serving as the council representative on the Breckenridge Open Space Advisory Commission. We're pleased to provide these grants to the Colorado 14ers Initiative and the Friends of the Dillon Ranger District.
All
Hey,
right.
was that sound out of sync?
No, it looked perfect.
Really? Like a
That's how you-
bad, like a spaghetti
you
western.
talk.
or something.
That's how
All
you
right,
talk.
good.
Hey, that was wonderful. Thank you, Dick and Jeffrey and Aaron. Having gone through the last, what, 12 and a half years, it seems like, that we were through this pandemic, really brought to light how important those nonprofits are to our community. I think Jeffrey and Dick both said it in their presentations. The strength of our nonprofits in this community it's overwhelming. It is a testament, I think, to the community that we have, the not only the nonprofits that we have, the depth of experience we have in those nonprofits, the depth of just the services they provide are unbelievable. So everybody out there that's in a nonprofit or helps a nonprofit or supports a nonprofit, which is probably everybody listening, thank you so much. You really are what makes our town so very special. So thank you so much. And yeah, great job, gang, with the presentation. It was awesome. We're going to move on to Planning Commission decisions. This is for the 4th of January, 2022. Anything to talk about today? No. All right. Planning Commission. Nobody sees a call up tonight?
No.
Really? Huh. All right. All right. No call up. So staff doesn't have to stay that long. We're going to move on to legislative review. We start with clarification to points under 24RD 1422. This is the amenity space code amendment clarification for second reading. Is this you, Mark?
It is. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is the second reading on 24R, which provides positive points for providing meeting rooms and conference facilities, and until recently also provided those for recreation and leisure amenities. We took those out a year ago. We discovered, as we talked about a month ago now, that they had been inadvertently returned into the code with some recent changes we did to the amenity club ordinance. So this once again removes the amenities piece, recreation and leisure amenities, from being eligible for positive points. So that's a major change. The one thing we did do based on Dick's suggestion is added a sentence towards the end of section 1 under 24R that talks about basically it makes projects that were to remove those type of spaces eligible for negative points. So the exact language is a conversion of space that had previously received positive points as meeting room and conference facilities or recreation and leisure amenities is strongly discouraged. Now that's our code language for negative points. Just like above, we say strongly encouraged for positive points. So we made that change based on Dick's suggestion. I'm glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Mark. Questions for staff? Anyone? I like that addition. That sounds good. I like the wording. All righty, this will be on for second reading this evening. Seeing no hands, we move on to development agreement with Brian Peterson and Danielle O'Grady for first reading. Chapin.
Mayor and Council, the Council reviewed this proposal at the last meeting in December at a work session. The only change is a slight increase in the size of the garage. This is very similar to the Terran Power Development Agreement that was recently approved by the Council. The only notable difference between Terran Power's development agreement and this proposal is that this proposal includes a third parking space, which is required in the Lincoln Park neighborhood. The ordinance development agreement and the restrictive covenant and agreement is included in your packet, and I can take any questions that you have.
Thanks, Chapin. Questions?
I mean, obviously, are we getting some interest in some of these things? Are you seeing some movement, more of these coming down the pipe?
This is the only one that I've been, the only other one that I've been contacted about, aside from Terran's. That there could be, and maybe perhaps some of the other planners have heard about those, but I have not.
Other questions? All right, everybody good for having this on first reading this evening? Yes, excellent. Okay, we have nope. Water District parcel annexation for first reading.
Yes, hello, hi. This is first reading of an ordinance to annex a very small piece of town-owned property. It was formerly owned by the Blue River Water District, and the town obtained ownership of it back in, I think it was 2003-ish, but it unfortunately was never actually annexed into the town, even though we owned it. In order for us to move forward with our McCain subdivision, the county is requesting that we clarify this and get this annexed into the town, since it's actually part of that McCain subdivision. So this is the first reading, and I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Lori. Questions for Lori? No? All right, first reading on this tonight. We have the engineering standards ordinance, and I know Jeffrey read all of this, so he'll be open for questions, as well as Chris McGinnis.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask some very tough questions to Chris.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, glad to hear it. Yeah, I'll just kind of give a quick summary, then be here for any questions or comments, since they're pretty detailed, but we haven't done a major update on our standards since 1987, so we updated these to reflect changes in the engineering industry, provide consistency with other codes, align with changes in town goals, and to provide more guidelines. There are basically 3 document changes in this. We have the design standards, construction specifications document. That's the long one. It's about 300 pages. That includes a majority of the changes and details. A lot of that was in the town code before, and then we moved a lot of the engineering details that didn't need to be codified into this administrative document. And then we also have the Title 10 town code changes in this ordinance. Title 10 is the engineering regulations, and a lot of this is relocated into the admin document. And then we updated a lot of the enforcement and legal requirements of the engineering code. Lastly, we have the updated Title 11 of the town code, which is the development code. We didn't change any planning department requirements in this. A lot of these changes are just administrative and updated references toward changes that were the Title 10 and the admin document that were kind of driving these Title 11 changes, and that was just cleanup. So with that, I'm here for any questions or comments that you have on these documents.
Thanks, Chris. All right, any questions?
Yeah, Chris, during the public input phase, was there significant input from the public or builders, or did you guys get feedback?
It was pretty brief. We only got a few people because we advertised it online. I emailed it directly to a lot of different people. We had a Survey Monkey, and then we also did an online meeting through it. And yeah, I think there's one person who had pretty detailed comments, and then there's just a couple other people with a couple of short comments.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hey, Chris, this is align us pretty much with what the county's doing, and well, really just the county.
Yeah, so we looked at the county's requirements, looked at their standards, which theirs had been updated. I forget when, but not too long ago. So we tried to provide a lot of consistency with that. There's some differences between ours and theirs, but for the most part, we looked at theirs. We looked at other communities as well. We also hired a consultant who has worked on standards for other communities. So we tried to be, as in line and consistent with other people and standards as we could.
Great, thanks.
All right, other questions?
No.
All right, Chris, thank you.
All right, thank you.
We have an election memo and resolution.
Mayor and council, this resolution would set the April 5th, 2022 election to be conducted by mail ballot. As you may recall, we have to do this as town code states that every time we choose to do a mail ballot election, we need to do it by resolution. We did it in 2020. We did it prior to that in 2018, although that election was canceled. And we believe that this is consistent with the expectations of our electorate and what the county is doing for their mail ballot elections.
At this point, would it be advantageous to change the code to include mail-in ballots?
Potentially, but I haven't yet talked to Kirsten about that.
Okay. Thanks.
Helen, do we have any ballot issues on this ballot yet?
Not yet, no. I have had no indication that there will be an issue on this ballot. We are up against the regular deadlines and no one has brought anything to me yet.
What is the deadline?
So it's just a
week.
Go ahead.
It's a little bit of a complicated question, but the last date that someone could bring an item to town council to vote it to the ballot would be February 8th. So that would be second reading on February 8th. So January 25th would be first reading. And that would be for any issue that would need to be on the ballot. And prior to that, I would have to approve a petition to form, and then the petition would need to be circulated to get the requisite number of signatures. And then I would need to approve the signatures, check signatures, and all of that process has timeframes associated with it. But no one's inquired with me about anything.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions of Helen? No? All right. Thank you, Helen.
Thank you.
That will be on for a resolution. We have the Justice Center IGA.
Yes, this is a resolution to approve an agreement between the town of Breckenridge and Summit County, and this is in regard to the construction and operation of the apartments on the Justice Center property that we've talked about. The intergovernmental agreement spells out sort of the responsibilities of each entity, the town and the county. And I did list those out in a bullet point in my memo, but basically we are agreeing to participate 50-50 in the development of some apartments on that property. We're agreeing that we will at some point agree on the design and the final cost before we actually start construction. The goal is that the town would obtain the COP financing and the county would sort of contribute the property. In fact, deed it in joint tenancy to town and county. And that the entitlements would go through the town review process. The building permit would go through the county. It's modeled after the Huron Landing Development Agreement, which worked out really well for us. So there are lots of things that we are agreeing to eventually agree on that we don't know yet. That would include sort of the AMI targets for the units, what we're going to charge for rent. Are we going to reserve some for the town to use? Are we going to reserve some for the county to use? So we are agreeing to ultimately agree on those at some point. But this resolution will authorize Eric to sign this agreement. There's a few little minor corrections and but nothing that changes the substance of the deal. For example, I noticed that the template that we got from the county still has Gary Martinez as the contact over there. So that's not the case anymore. But other than that, the form of the IGA is pretty final, except for some minor tweaks that that don't change the substance of the deal. So we're asking for your approval of the resolution, and I'm available to take any questions.
Thank you, Lori. Questions? All righty, Lori, thank you very much.
Yeah, I will note, Eric, sorry, the BOCC did approve this afternoon.
Oh,
on
good.
their agenda.
Excellent, thank you.
So they agreed that we need to agree?
Yeah, they agreed that we need to agree.
All right, I agree with that.
Okay, so we all.
Yeah, nice.
Thank you. All right, we have a resolution approving assistant prosecutor and compensation. Kirsten?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a proposed resolution to approve the continued service of Bob Gregory, who provides assistance for town prosecution. This was a nice opportunity for me to acquaint myself with Bob. And there is a requirement in the charter that the council set the rate for the town prosecution, and the proposed rate is $137. and change in the resolution, which is a nominal increase from last year, which I am digging up if you want to know the difference. Shannon might have it at the ready. So we're recommending that you adopt the proposed resolution.
Any questions?
We're lucky to have Bob. Totally support this.
I agree with Kelly. I totally support this. But I do have a question. Is it possible to change the pronouns and town charter?
What?
Your town charter also requires that you only hire a male. So I think we're, yeah.
Can we change that?
Joking aside, we could do an omnibus cleanup of stuff like that at some point, and I have it kind of on a list for at some point. And I think I should just mention that I know Bob was planning to appear tonight for the regular meeting in case anyone wants to give him the commendations then.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Kirsten.
Yeah, I agree with Aaron too. When I read this, I thought that was sort of funny.
I didn't even notice it.
Of course you didn't.
Of course.
All right, everybody good with this memo and the resolution? All right. All right, manager's report. Thanks, Kirsten. Public projects, I know there are none, and there's Shannon. Hey. Anything to add?
I'm sorry, what?
Anything to add to what's in the packet, which is nothing?
Nothing.
Yeah, I do have a couple short updates for you. So we're getting ready to start all the 2022 construction. The dam contractors are really eager to get going. They are working on a schedule for us right now, but they might come on site to start pushing around some snow, as well as bring some equipment on site at the end of February. So just in case you hear of any activity out there, that's what's going on.
Okay.
Wanted to let you know the 2022 projects we're working on are the standard overlay in concrete, the Blue River reconstruction, the Warriors Mark sidewalk, Gold's Pan and Ice House alley circulation, and the Watson roundabout. So we'll be bringing you a lot more detail on the bids and budgets as we finalize those. And then quick update on the parking structure. It's been open for 2 months. I think overall everything's going really well. Right now we're working on watching the circulation patterns of both the pedestrians and the cars. When Norris did that presentation, they coined it the living lab. So we're looking at this as kind of like phase one of the living lab, what's going on now that we have all these additional cars and people coming off that site. Norris is actually going to come on site and take some footage President's Day weekend. And then Breck Park is looking at putting some ped counters out too, so we can really start getting data of where all the people are going. We're not trying to make any really big changes this first season, but more just do those observations.
So I have talked with Shannon a couple times about the pedestrian flow over there, which is clunky. It's a nice way to put it, really. There's a lot of people moving in the way that we didn't really intend them to, I think, because of the way we designed the sidewalk. So there's some things I think that are going to need to be changed as time goes on. But like I said, Shannon and I have talked about it, and I know she's on it. But if you spend any time over there catching a bus or just walking to get the bus or the gondola, it's sort of funky after you get by the parking structure and where you might want to walk, and you can watch. I see Matt shaking his head because he's seen it. He sees the way people, are drawn directly, sort of the way that the path doesn't go. And it's definitely something that's going to need to be addressed.
Yeah, we want to keep working on getting everybody to move east rather than free flow across Watson. I think we did get the people partially where we want them to go, but they're still getting into the transit horseshoe more than we want them to. But I think
pickup and drop off, I'll just say, is terrific. And it works, that flow works really well.
The skier drop off, yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I will say is I still don't think there's numbers like to put into your passport parking for over there, which is a pain.
Numbers still aren't up.
They weren't this week.
So they are up. They're just very small. They're a sticker printer. And they're right below the screen. If you look at the screen, it says zone number and it says the zone number under there. But we are working on a better permanent solution for that.
Do you know the zone number, Matt? I remember that was asked a few meetings
Totally disregard.
ago. No? Okay. So we'll make sure those get updated. And then another thing I wanted to mention in addition to the pedestrians, we knew going into this, the vehicular egress was going to be difficult in the afternoons. PD has been out there controlling the intersection at Watson and Park per the CDOT permit. And we will see some improvement with the addition of the right in, right out driveway and the roundabout next year. But it is a lot of cars that are leaving in a short period of time onto an already saturated road network. So we just want to acknowledge that we understand that it is taking a really long time, and we will see some improvements next year.
Do we have enough police or security people out there moving traffic?
We're doing our best with the staffing we have. PD has prioritized this over the village crossing.
Let me take this to the next step, and that is, how much money do we need to spend to hire somebody to be out there on these busy weekends that are coming up, in particular, MLK Presidents, snow sculpture? What do we need to do to have assistance for the PD?
I don't know if Rick and Shannon have ideas.
Eric, they already have people assigned to work that there. And it's not a question of needing more money to do it. It's a question of the people. So but they know they have to have people assigned there, and we can't hire private security because they put them out in a roadway to direct traffic. So, that last, I think it was Sunday, you noticed, right? There wasn't, and that may not have been one of the days identified, but MLK weekend, President's weekend, those are key weekends, Matt, right, that we've identified. Do we have a list of what those dates are?
We do. I have it written down, and I can forward it on to the group after the meeting.
Well, why don't you share that with Shannon and I first, and we'll look. I'm not sure the council is interested in what every date is supposed to be out there, but Eric, I appreciate the support, and we'll work with the chief to make sure, but I'm not sure money is the answer right now, extra money to help us on that. So.
All right, but if there is, this has been important enough, and we talked about it enough during design and the beginning of construction that we, at Coffee Talks, we sort of told people we'll make sure that we have enough help out there. And if part of our problem is manpower, and there's some way that we can, help facilitate that, I think, I'm not speaking for the whole council, but I feel like the council would be supportive of that.
Okay.
Anecdotally, is the garage working? Are people using it? Shannon, I mean, is it?
I'll let Matt talk to you about parking and operations. He has.
Yeah, it's a great segue into mobility. Just like Shannon said, we're really using this time to gather data without making too many changes. Obviously, safety ones we're doing, and ones that we know will improve efficiencies we're doing. But a few statistics I think that are good for us to all know. Like she said, the garage has only been open for 60 days. Over the past 21 days, we've seen 80% or higher occupancy, 14 of those 21 days. So we're seeing traffic increase pretty good, and we're seeing repeat traffic. So that is a good sign to me. People are actually enjoying, in general, the experience they're getting there. And then another important statistic is 65% of our parkers are using the mobile app to pay, with the mass majority using the Honk app as opposed to the Passport app. We did kind of discuss that in the last meeting, so I just wanted to get that data to you. So. And then another interesting topic is after 3 p.m., when we switch to 50 cents per hour, we're seeing very minimal new parking sessions in the garage, really in the neighborhood of 5 to 20 vehicles total. And, during our busy days, we're parking 950 or up to 1,000 cars with some turnover. After 3 p.m., we're probably averaging 15 cars total. So just a little bit of food for thought for the future there. And that's all I have on the structure. What questions do we have before I transition into some other mobility?
Matt, before you leave the structure, what kind of parking retention are we seeing of people that showed up in the morning and then are leaving their car and heading into town in the afternoon? Do you know how many cars are there at, say, 6 o'clock?
So, yeah, well, we don't have the actual factual data on the exact license plates that are sitting there at later in the day. By my judgment, I usually drive around at about 5:30 or 6 p.m. almost every day and take a quick count with my head. And I would say we're down to 20% or less by that end of ski day timeframe. So it's very minimal. Most people leave as soon as the mountain is closed, and that's really where we're seeing our jam-packed roads out there from 3:30 to 5.
So, and what kind of signage do we have do we have signage inside yet that says, avoid traffic, walk to town, you don't have to pay anymore, or some?
Yeah, we didn't put any of that in, Eric. We talked about doing some digital boards on the interior, some TVs, but we didn't implement them initially.
Okay. I think that's something we're going to have to do going forward, because we really need to crank that 20% up to, something more than 20%.
Yeah, so our discussion, our data collection lately has been figuring out how to get pedestrians out of the structure when they go skiing and get them out of there safely, and then also get them to the restrooms. That seems to be a little bit of an issue, so we have signs on order to do that. So I would say next to tackle is, stay and play or stay longer, hang out on Main Street type things. So that is one of the next high ups on the list.
Excellent.
Hey, do we have the ability to set pricing after 3, or does the ski area still control pricing after 3?
We have the ability to adjust. We would just have to get agreement with the ski.
Because I would love to see it. I'd love to see it be free after 3.
Yeah.
I mean, 50 cents and we're down to 20%. We're not making much money on it. And I think free after 3 might be a bit of an incentive to keep people there, but it also might be an incentive for people just to go there and park, to go downtown in the evenings.
I totally agree, Dick. Though, Matt, if we did free after 3, would they have to sign up with, go through the app, or can they just park there and leave their car? Because I don't think people are being dissuaded by the 50 cents. I think they're being dissuaded because they don't want to mess with the app.
I would agree. Yes, we can do more or less. Anybody that comes before 3 pays that full day rate, $10 or $20. Anybody after 3, we just don't need to enforce the garage anymore. So we could do this fairly easily. Obviously, we do need to consult with the resort to make sure that it's in our agreement. But that would be a very easy trigger to pull.
And Matt, with the various apps that we use, is there any opportunity if people sign up for that certain zone in the parking garage, if we can use that as a way to push messaging, like stay and play, wait for traffic? Is that an opportunity to target people if they have features within those apps?
Yes, there is. We've been discussing with Breck Park on some ideas of that exact marketing. Through the Honk app, we can actually push some notifications out, and we can work on it through the Passport app. But like I said, that one's very minimally used. About 35% of our parkers are using the actual solar kiosks in the structure. So the rest are using a mobile app where we could actually push them some sort of notification of, hang out, you've paid for the day, hang out, don't move, go hang out on Main Street.
So, I mean, I think at least 2 of you suggested that we have free after 3 there. We kind of committed to not making any big changes to this until we really understood what the patterns were going to be, and that we were able to kind of work through all the marketing and the different things going on in that area. And that could be a bit of a hard sell right now with the resort to go free after 3 on that lot. But if the majority of you want us to look at that, we can.
I'm not sure why they would mind, considering that they seem to be filling North Gondola before anything else.
They are.
And so,
And they may not, Eric, but I think originally they didn't have any idea, but so.
Yeah, and they're customers as well that are leaving, so.
Well, don't forget, Dick, if you buy during the day, you're not paying anyway. It's the people that are just showing up. I mean, honestly, if nobody's using the thing, it'd be a great place for employee parking.
Yeah.
Yeah, when does it close?
It doesn't until the next.
2 to 6 a.m. is technically closed time, but that's how the rest of our lives are. Mainly.
Yeah, I agree with Eric. It would be great if we could use that for employee too.
And our guests.
Yeah, both.
At night,
Yeah. I mean, could we just ask, see what they think?
Oh, of course. That's how we do it. I mean, we'll go ahead and pursue it. I see at least 4 of you that want to go down that road. So,
I mean,
now they're listening right now.
I'd honestly like to see free after 2, so our local workforce could go ski an hour at the end of the day. But I don't think we're ready to ask for that yet. I think we go for free after 3 and maybe try something else later.
All right. Any other questions on the structure before I move into free ride? All righty. So just like many businesses, the free ride has had a difficult few weeks, mainly with staffing, health, and retention, as well as rider compliance with the mask mandate, both in our buses and at the Breck station. At our last meeting, I mentioned we were at 34 drivers with a goal of 38. This month, I'm sorry to say we're down to 30 drivers. That's 30, again, with the goal of being at 38. So with a recent drop in drivers filling seats, you've probably noticed routes being canceled with very little warning. We definitely apologize for that and have a solution I'll present here in just a few minutes. With the safety and health of our drivers being our first priority and continuing to operate reliable transit service, we've made a few recent changes. So we've closed the grand room at the transit center to provide to the public access, but we have left the restrooms open for our visitors to use, along with the restrooms in the parking structure. We've reinstalled the driver barriers in all of our buses. This now means riders must load and unload from the rear door, where masks are still being provided and required for their trip. We've also been searching for security, just like Eric said, external security for our bus routes to help with mask enforcement in an effort to take a little bit of that responsibility off of our drivers' laps. So far, we haven't gotten anywhere with that, but we are researching it. And, we'll continue to do that. So, any questions in regards to that before I move into some route updates?
Hey, Kirsten, is it legal for me to ask him if any drivers have gotten sick? Or is that like a hypocritical oath?
No, I think that's fine for you to ask, and it's fine to answer as long as no private information is disclosed.
I'll take it from here. Any drivers get sick?
Yes, we have had drivers get sick. All that we know is outside of work, not related to work.
Good. Okay.
So Matt, I don't know if this is the time to bring this up. One thing, I mean, as you all know, I ride the bus pretty frequently. One of the things that I think has really come on as an Achilles heel for us in our transit is the messaging piece. And the messaging piece to people that don't use the app, which Kelly and I have both been talking about. The map is, or the app is pretty frustrating, but you still can get information out of it. So if Matt has to shut down a route, say he shuts Purple B, that goes on the alert, you can get it on your app. If you're savvy enough to know what you're doing, you can look at that and find it out. Unfortunately, if you are a guest and you walk out to a stop and stand there for a long time, we don't have a way to let people know. And I'm not saying that we're asking Matt to solve this today, but it's something we need to really start to think about, is how can we message that instantly to people that aren't using their phones. I stood at the, I caught a late bus on Sunday. I caught the 4 o'clock, turned out A because there was no B. Very few people that were standing there had any inkling that they were going to get on the A bus. All of them were going to French Street, which was funny because when we got to French Creek, they all started to get off the bus until I explained, this is not French Street, this is French Creek. And I never realized how confusing that was to begin with. But our messaging is pretty poor for the guest when it comes to helping them navigate when we're having internal trouble. So at some point, I really do feel like we're going to have to come up with a different solution.
I think that's a great comment, Eric. I know we have been chatting with the company that does our app. We have seen some improvements. Again, it's not very user-friendly, and we're working to improve that. We do have a contract with them through April of this year, which we can look at after that to swap if we want to. It is a large stand-up cost if we do swap, but I do think that's the route we should be looking at. One other addition to the user friendliness, on all of our signs and all the bus stops, we have the text 41411 and this stop number. If you do that, you'll get an immediate text back automatically that will tell you when the next 2 buses are going to arrive at that stop. And it's in live time. So we have seen that improve. And I would say, that is something you can give to a guest that said, say, hey, check this out. It will work for you. You just see what the stop number is, type text 41411, and it'll basically tell you this is when the next bus will be here.
And Matt, is that information on the sign?
It is on the sign.
Bus stop?
Yeah, so it's on the sign, and I'll go double check with my team that it's visible, because I know with some of the frames we've been using, it has dropped below the frame. So we'll work on improving that now, just to make sure that we have some of that messaging coming out.
Well, and I wonder, since we're in the state that we're in, I wonder if being proactive, like saying, hey, waiting for a bus, do this first kind of a thing. I don't know, like just in case, check to make sure that your bus is coming. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's a great idea, Aaron.
I think for the crisis, sort of the crisis piece, that's important. There's still this larger issue of just general information about our system. And if you're standing at the transit center, for instance, and where do you want to go? What's the easiest way to get there? I don't know if people just don't travel like this often. I've had some bizarre conversations with people getting on the Purple that were trying to get to Ski and Racket. And the Purple goes nowhere near Ski and Racket. So I don't know how we get more of this information out. It's important because we spend a lot of money on the free ride. It's an outstanding service. We really do. I'm glad Matt is here now to sort of help us refine the system a little bit, so we can just pump better information out to the guest.
So
locals know where they're going.
I think I would agree with Matt's shrug. One thing that I also experienced that I do think is pretty important to remedy is we have like the ADA for visually impaired. I don't know how many sites we have that where they're reading when the next buses are coming, but those are not getting updated along with, like, the Breck Purple one said that B was coming and that A was coming, and it kept saying it, even though we got a message that B was canceled for the afternoon or something. So I really feel for, that situation just seems exceptionally grim. So if we can pay extra attention to that. But also, I feel like we're paying a lot of attention to the messaging for when we're having issues, but I'm tempted to say we're having some issues with just the strategy of our routes right now. I mean, why it seems to me that we it would seriously benefit from having at least one route that doesn't cross over Main Street at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Like, I really think we should have some kind of a route that does not have to go across Main Street, because it wouldn't consistently be an issue of being so late if it didn't have to do that one stop in front of Town Hall and then take all those rights and lefts, you know? And so I would be super interested in sort of just rethinking the whole scenario of what routes are on the east side of Main Street, I guess. And just paying attention to, does that really need to go into the station every time? And just because I think we're scaring a ton of people away from using the bus because you just can't plan on it. And I don't know how long it's going to take to get back. And I understand we have staffing issues and that kind of thing, but I do think we have other issues that we're just trying to message about and talk about, but really we should just be fixing. And that's one that I really, really think we should pay attention to, is trying to keep them out of all that traffic.
I agree with that, Kelly. Just like a local.
Yeah, that's a great.
Yeah, local that just never crosses Main Street.
Yeah, that's great feedback. I do know that we have had a little bit of discussion on kind of changing up some routes here in the future. So while I'm not saying it's going to happen today, I do think it's a topic for discussion, and I appreciate the feedback. Moving us forward, in an effort to stop this whole short notice route cancellation, we are going to make a change effective this Saturday, January 15th, to the purple route. It's going to be an improvement. We are going to go back to the purple AB split, or purple hybrid, as some people called it. So in the morning at 6:15 and through 3:15, we're going to run purple A. And then at 3:45, we're going to switch to until 11 p.m. running purple B. So really it helps us get our workforce into town quicker, and also helps us get our workforce out of town quicker, or up into that other area, that purple area. So I think that'll be a win for us. It also frees up a driver for us, which gives us a lot of extra backbone as we try to keep the system being useful. So
that's great, Matt.
Yeah, that'll probably continue for the remainder of our winter service until we transition into summer. So just be aware of that. Any updates come, I'll let you know. Another one that's been a hot topic with our ridership is the Blue Route. That's been canceled for the majority of the season, and I just chatted with the resort. They're cautiously optimistic, and I will say that again, cautiously optimistic, that they'll be able to resume this service with a single bus doing 40-minute headways, or service every 40 minutes, beginning Saturday, January 22nd. So not this weekend, but next Saturday is their goal. They have a few new drivers in training, and they're hoping to have them licensed and trained up on the road middle of next week. So optimistically, January 22nd with a single blue bus doing that route. So just so I guess in contrast to years past, that route is what used to be run with 2 buses providing 20-minute service. So this is going to be 40-minute service. So just take a little bit of planning, but it's still that's been our hottest topic with our guests calling in. So I will
better than nothing.
Quick dramatic effect, and then also any questions. Great. Yeah, so we have seen some improvement in the My Free Ride app. I would encourage people, if you haven't used it or you're tired of using it, get back in there. If you need some assistance with me helping you learn how to use it, it has been improved quite substantially in the last few weeks. And then the last couple things that I have, International Snow Sculpture Championships. So while we're very excited to see this event come back into Breckenridge, with our current transit staffing levels, we're not going to be comfortable committing to the same level of service that we've provided in years past. So while we'll do our best to move our guests around, riders around, the free ride is really going to have to stick to our core, which is our established routes. So just be aware of that. We may see some surprise out there and get a few of us that are legally allowed to drive buses out there helping, but we are going to be very focused. And I know that Lucy's going to give a little update on that later tonight. Last but not least, the vaccine bus is in town. If you haven't seen it, It will be here tomorrow at Beaver Run, and then also all weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the ice rink. So that is a mobility update. Sorry, I took the majority of that time. Any other questions for me?
Thank you, Matt. That was great.
That was good.
Anyone? Any other questions, comments? All right. Thanks a lot, Matt. Okay, housing and childcare.
Yes, we've got 2 sets of minutes actually in your packet. One is the childcare minutes from January 3rd, which Austin will review with you all in just a little bit. And then we also have the housing committee minutes in there from December 14th. I wanted to see if you all had any questions on the housing minutes. One thing I would like to point out that we discussed on the 14th was changing the housing helps. From right now, the housing helps program is a 15% sort of acquisition cost for deed restriction. The committee discussed increasing that all the way up to 30% in certain circumstances and for a more stringent deed restriction. We're going to be working on writing up our program guidelines so that they're written because they get a little bit complicated, and we'll be presenting that to you at a future meeting. I think we're having a long, comprehensive conversation about housing in February. So we can go through those housing helps, new guidelines with you to make sure you understand. But we did increase, get permission from the committee to go up to 30% for a bigger deed restriction, one that has an appreciation cap. Other than that, at the meeting in December, we just talked about sort of the cost of our different programs and how it's changed over time. But the minutes are in there. If you have any questions, I'm available to try to answer them.
Thanks, Lori. Questions?
One quick question, Corey, what is somewhere in here, it also should be noted that deed restriction does include an ROFR. What is ROFR?
Yeah, it's funny that my name is showing up as Corey on here. I think I think I used Corey's link, but that's all right. I'll act like Corey. That's when we sell we do a buy down or when we do a housing helps, both of those deed restrictions have the ability for us to acquire that unit, right of first refusal when they go to sell. We found that staying in the game is sometimes the best thing we can do. So if we have the opportunity when they sell to buy it, we may pursue that in several cases,
Okay, that's great. I didn't know what that acronym is.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think it's really exciting, the different things you all are exploring and the housing helps with ADUs. I think that's really interesting. Also, town is a cash buyer. It'll be interesting to see how Vail's program evolves. And then the only other thing of the notes, I mean, I think it's incredible, like on the buy downs, the cost of a bedroom used to be around $50,000 and now it's $80,000. So I think that highlights even more the development agreement we're doing in Lincoln Park, how much those make sense.
Yeah. The cost of the buy downs have really gone up over the last year because the acquisition costs for the units have gone up. We used to pay on average somewhere $300,000 or $400,000 for the units. Now we're having to pay $6 to $7 to over $7 to acquire the unit, and we're still buying it down to the same affordable price. So we're actually buying it down 30 to 39% to get it down to a price that's affordable, which is why we're considering upping the housing helps, because we're realizing that really is the value of that buy down. Lease to locals is in here also. And, we started that pilot program at the end of the year, and we will be wanting to revisit that pilot program and talk about redoing it again for next year or continuing it through the summer and into the next winter. And is the incentive the right amount? And we'll talk with the county about sort of their conclusions. But yeah, we'll want to definitely go and have a conversation about that now that we've gotten through the busy season of the lease to locals.
Yeah, Lori, let me jump in real quick here because we didn't have a chance today to run this by the committee, but one of the things that we need to address immediately as we're entering into these contracts with lease to locals is remember that one of the criteria is that it's a conversion from short-term to long-term, and meaning that they've all had a short-term license. What's important for these people is to know that they can retain that license if once they're done long-term renting for their 12 months or whatever they decide to do. And so we either need, right now, the only thing they're being told is you still should go get a license, but why it makes no sense that we would tell somebody go pay $1,400 fee or whatever, but you can't use the license for 12 months because you're long-term renting. So we either need to allow them to get a license and waive the fee. And if there may not be a mechanism for waiving fees. If that's the case, then I would suggest that we put something in writing that tells them at the end of their long-term rental agreement, if they want to continue to short-term, they can get a license again. Because what people aren't going to give up, that fear of future restriction on those licenses, if they give it up because they're entering into a 6-month agreement with us to do a long-term rental, but they may lose that ability to have that license in the future, I think that'll cut down on people wanting to do it.
Absolutely. When we talk to people about lease to locals, the first question they ask is, I can still have my license, right? I'm just agreeing to a temporary long-term rental for either 6 months or a year, but I'm not going to lose my license. And we always tell them, no, you're not going to lose your license, but you have to keep paying your fee. And I think that's the issue is, should we give them some relief on that fee while they're long-term renting it?
Why don't we just figure out a way to freeze that license? Just some kind of
Eric,
administrative rule that license is just frozen. So it's just.
We'll figure out a way to do it if everybody's supportive. Let us figure out the mechanism, because
I'm supportive of a freeze. I don't want that license to go back into the pot. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with all comments. I mean, I think we need every incentive we can get to get people to do this.
All right.
What else?
We need to do some quick childcare. We have some questions we need to get answered. Austin's going to run through that.
Mayor and Council, good evening. The Breckenridge Child Care Advisory Committee met on January 5th. The meeting minutes were in your packet. I'm here to discuss 2 recommendations from the committee and answer any questions you may have. First off, with the most recent COVID surge in the community and the direct impacts on continual room closures on workforce families, the committee is recommending that Town Council consider issuing a one-time assistance of about $60,000 that the centers can pass on to families in the form of a credit. This reflects 25% of January's total invoicing for the 4 centers to be reflected in February. In addition, the committee is also recommending further support of workforce families by temporarily dropping the tuition assistance childcare expenditure parameter from 13 to 16% to 10 to 13% to try to retain more workforce during this time. Staff forecasts that this should be about $50,000 until the tuition assistance cycle resets, and that will be in September. At that time, we can reassess the need. Both of these requests can be absorbed in the current childcare budget and does not require any extra allocation of funds. As I mentioned, I'm here to answer any questions. It was a lot of information was in your packet, but I'm here to discuss the minutes as well as the committee recommendations.
Thanks, Austin.
Austin, if you don't mind, I'm just going to piggyback on for 1 second, because I know I've spoken with some of you guys about this issue, but I think it's important that the public understands sort of what we're looking at here, which is for a family of 4, 2 parents, 2 kids, we're talking about $43,000 a year they're paying for childcare in our community. And that's the same pretty much no matter where you go. And so what we're talking about at this point is that, these parents are experiencing all the stressors of COVID, all the same things that we're experiencing day in, day out. But in addition, they basically have, 2 mortgages that they're paying. A lot of people say they pay more in childcare than a mortgage. And then to heap the just complications on top of that is that your kid isn't just out if you have COVID or if someone in your family has COVID, because don't forget, most of these kids are not vaccinated. So any exposure quarantines them. But They're also out if you have a sniffle or a cold or anything, because we can't tell if that's COVID. And so the number of days that parents are having to stay home from work or, juggle things, it's just a massive amount of stress. And I know you guys are sympathetic to that, but I just want to make sure that everyone has that on the front of their minds, that it's a lot of money, it's a lot of stress, and that these parents are really just kind of at their wits' end from all the, the loss in care and the days that they haven't been able to work. And so we did do 25% last year in January for the same reason, which is just a high stress period, lots of childcare closures, lots of kids out with either COVID or other illnesses. So we did this 60,000 last year, which was very, very hugely appreciated. And then the other component is really looking at helping those parents who need the help the most, which is that's going to our current tuition assistance families. And it's bringing down, instead of 13 to 16% of their annual income for childcare, they'd be paying more in the realm of 10 to 13%. So those are the two different numbers. And I obviously wholly support this and hope that everybody on council will as well. And I did ask Greta to get on. She's the director of Little Red. If anyone has any specific questions for her, she is on the line somewhere and we could pull her up.
Thanks, Kelly. All right, first questions for Austin or Kelly about this? Discussion.
Yeah,
I think it's a no-brainer. These are the some of the most vulnerable people in our workforce, and these are unprecedented times. And if 60K goes just a small direction into eliminating some of the stress of these families, I think it's money well spent.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Austin and Kelly and Jeffrey, said it well, but what's very clear is that people are essentially not getting what they paid for, through no fault of anybody's. It's just the nature of COVID with unvaccinated kids, which they can't do anything about. So I think this is just the right thing to do.
I agree with all comments and add that this also supports the teachers that have also been quarantined or tested positive and had to miss work. And, they catch some heat from some of the parents. I mean, it's just such a high stress time. I mean, these parents have to pay and then are told that they have to come get their kid and take them home because they had a little sniffle. It's a little bit of a high stress situation. And so this, I think, sends a message to all of those incredibly valuable teachers and staff at that child cares that need that support as well.
And I'll just add that I really support the second component of this, where it's working to get that closer to the 7% of Health and Human Services recommended gross income spent. So I would seriously consider making this change permanent to systematically and continually support our workforce. I did have one question about the emergency funds that we have a balance of 55,000. What exactly is that fund for? And are parents and centers not aware to ask for help from this emergency fund, or what is that fund directed towards?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that question, Carol. So in November 2020, Town Council did allocate 75 in emergency funding. 25K was for a family emergency. Pardon me. 50K was for centers to ensure staff could continue to get paid through quarantines and closures. To date, we've used about $20,000 of that fund. That's all family relief that we've used it currently. Staff would really like to keep that budget intact. As of right now, COVID pay is set to expire mid-February. And so that we want to keep that fund in place to ensure that we have those funds in place.
Dennis? Anybody, is that it? Yeah, and I agree. And I like Carol's idea about moving that bar to 7% permanently at some point as we move along.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Kelly got her way again.
Children are our future.
Thank you, Jeffrey, for putting that in the right context.
As long as they stay out of my yard.
All righty, is that it for childcare? Rick? All right. All right, committee reports. We had police advisory. Any questions about the police? No? And rec events. Questions for Shane?
Yep, I don't have anything to add beyond what was in the memo, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is Lucy gonna talk about snow sculpting tonight? Is that part of?
There is a BTO update tonight, so I expect she will.
Okay. Just about what the, what's the, is ticketing a thing? Is it not a thing? Do we know, you know, just.
So they're planning on ticketing. I can share they are planning on ticketing for Saturday, which is the busiest day, and also trying to communicate to people that you should, I think Carol can remind me, I think it was like view snow sculpture like a local or something like that, and don't come on Saturday, to try to mitigate some of those issues that we likely will have. But I think she can talk more specifically about what that plan is for how that's going to work.
Okay, good. Other events questions? Jeffrey, you look like you want to ask something.
I think I'll wait for Lou. I have a question about the snow sculpting.
Okay.
I'll wait for Lucy.
All right then. We have open space master plan update. Ann Lowe.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Since we last updated you on our master plan process a month ago, we completed our winter survey just this week and have over 440 responses to that survey. So we and our consultants both are really thrilled with the response rate on that survey. We also completed episode 5 in our podcast series on the topic of winter trail use. So big thanks to Shannon and Jeffrey for participating in that for us. And really over the next 5 weeks or so, DTJ is compiling, analyzing a lot of this information and is starting work on drafting the actual master plan report itself. We're hoping sometime by the end of February or very early March, we'll do another public open house. We'll see where we are with COVID to see if we can do that in person. But we want to be able to share a lot of the results and get reactions from people and make another round of refinements as necessary before bringing this to BOSAC for a recommendation, hopefully sometime around the end of March, where we can get this in front of council, hopefully early April for adoption. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Ann.
Hey, and I asked Erin this, and I think she probably brought it up at a BOSAC meeting. But my question is, we had like a 46% folks in the summer survey said they've experienced some conflict on the trails. And when DTJ comes back with the data, I'd be very curious to see the percentage of user groups that have experienced conflict. So like if 46% of across the board, but if like 80% of hikers and 20% of mountain bikers, I'd like to know those numbers. So if you could put kind of light a fire or put a bug up BTJ's to remind them of that.
Sure, absolutely, we can do that.
Yeah, I like that, Jeffrey.
And I think, Ann, you said that they would come back with all demographic information.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of great information on the demographics, age groups, where people live, and of course, what types of activities they're engaged in.
Perfect. Thank you.
And will that be something that we get ahead of time so that we can really study it before just a brief update during the meeting?
I do not believe that DTJ was planning on kind of releasing all of that information yet until we get to that open house at the end of February or early March.
Okay, but we would eventually see it.
Oh yeah.
Because these brief updates are great, but it's hard for me to make any meaningful contribution without the data.
Yes.
Yeah, Yep, we can do that.
I'd like to have data of how many people Carol has scared on the trails.
Jeffrey.
Oh, Jeffrey. Anything else with open space update? No, any other questions? All right. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Exterior food and beverage area code. Hi, Julia.
Hello, Mayor and Town Council. This is your second work session on the exterior food and beverage areas. This policy really is to create changes to regulate the exterior food and beverage service areas. We do regulate the indoor food and beverage service areas in various code sections, but not outdoor currently. And therefore we are not regulating the impacts that are created by the outdoors exterior service areas. So those would be such impacts as employee generation, lighting, increased water use, and parking needs. And at our first work session back on November 23rd, we talked about modifying the language that you saw at that point. And since then, we made some changes. Those are shown in red primarily in your draft. And we removed the density requirement. Previously, we were proposing density required for those exterior areas. We modified the definition to create the 200 square foot exemption that was found in numerous other places throughout the draft language. And the 200 square foot exemption would just be for that initial piece. And so we tried to clarify that in there as well. So initially 200 square feet would be exempt from the remainder of the exterior food and beverage requirements for employee generation and parking and water fees. That really allows for the smaller businesses or those with minimal areas to have 200 square feet without any fees. We also created the Class D minor process for the food and beverage exterior areas under 200 square feet. We added an example calculation of exterior food and beverage for employee generation under 24R as well. That was a request that we had gotten. And we did regulate or propose some regulations regarding bistro lights and holiday lights, which we didn't discuss at the last meeting, but was included in there. And that was to change the requirement from a preferred soft or warm LED lights to requiring them to be soft or warm LEDs. That comes further into conformance with the dark sky requirements. However, it doesn't just include the bistro lights in this proposal, it also includes holiday lights, which are referred to in the code as decorative lights. So that is one thing that isn't related necessarily to exterior food and beverage, but was brought up at the Planning Commission work session that we should probably go ahead and change that with the dark to come into conformance with dark sky. Then we also made a change to the bistro lights to actually allow them onto the rooftops. And we went with 10 feet above a rooftop deck if it was screened on two sides, not highly visible from the right of way. That was brought up in the case of, for example, Modus, where they had some screening of buildings, so you couldn't really see their bistro lighting on the rooftop very easily. So we'd like some reaction to that. The last issue I wanted to talk about was with regard to our policy 33R, which is our energy conservation policy. And this would actually create an absolute policy under 33, which we don't currently have. It was brought up by several council members to look at the outdoor energy use for heating, and specifically like propane heaters, electric heaters, or infrared heaters. And so we did consult with Jessie Burley, who did some research for us on that. And her recommendation findings are attached, all her calculations on those three different heating methods. The recommendation from Jesse was to allow for one propane heater per 250 square feet, and not allow for electric or infrared heaters on new exterior dining areas. They're just not as energy efficient. And so the recommendation at this time would be the propane only, and then reassess it as maybe the electric or infrared become more energy efficient over time. And staff just wanted to point out that, we have had we see some issues with regulating these exterior types of heating systems because they're temporary and portable in nature. And it will be difficult to sort of chase these down as they appear out on patios. So with that, the other thing is that we have talked to restaurateurs who tend to prefer the electric ones because they can be wall mounted or under eaves and they're out of the way. They don't have to be moved around or refilled over time by their staff. So we do see some issues with sort of implementing the outdoor heating piece of this, but that has been drafted up in the ordinance for your review. So with that, I'd take any questions or thoughts.
Thanks, Julia. All right, questions first.
What is as far as the electric and the propane, what's the difference? Is propane 3 times more effective than, or more sustainable than electric, or what's
2 acres
the
of
ratio?
forest.
Pardon me?
2 acres of forest. It's in the packet.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you know that off the top of your head?
It's in the packet, Jesse put it in the packet.
Oh. I don't think that was in there.
Scientist, Jeffrey.
So it's much more efficient.
But I have a question about this because this really rubbed me wrong. And I love Jesse's little 8 acres of forest versus 10 acres of forest. And I mean, frankly, I don't think that the difference actually is big enough for staff to warrant the time of chasing around who has electric and who has propane. What I really think, I mean, can we do something big here? Can we say, actually, you can have your electric and we want you to have electric, but we want you to buy wind energy from Excel to offset that. I mean, that's still available from Excel. They can pay for that. These numbers are staggering. And that's just for, I think, 1 tank, right? For years, for not even a year's worth. That's half of a year's worth. So that's November to March. That's all they're using it for.
Nobody's seating people outside in the wintertime.
Well, that's what this is for.
I know, but it doesn't happen. I mean, that's not a thing. There are no restaurants that seat outside in the wintertime, except maybe.
Okay, so if you do the other half of the year.
This is truly a summertime thing. And I think the hours are much more limited than we think they are. I mean, ask Dick. I don't have a patio, so I can't really tell you. Dick knows how much he uses his heaters, which are necessary at some points in the summer.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Eric. We need to remember that after this winter, all those structures on the decks around town are no longer allowed. That is something we did during COVID. So we've been heating the outdoors during the winter, just to support the restaurants, to get through COVID. And I think it was great for those that chose to do it. But that's over at the end of this winter. So I don't know. The only people I know that have heaters that use them during the winter is maybe like at the base of the ski area,
right.
Those patios, and it's just so limited. I have, both my restaurants have that patios, and Mikasa is kind of northern exposure, so I use the heaters more there. But it's really typically during the summer when a cloud blows over the sun, or when the sun's going summer, and you're just getting through those last couple hours of service, 2-3 hours of service, and just to take the edge off. So I I know I appreciate Jesse's work in doing this and looking at winter use, but I'm not going to say there's no winter use, but it's, golly, it's very, very limited. I mean, that the propane to try to keep something going for 18 hours a day is massive. I actually hard plumb mine to natural gas at the Hearthstone, so I didn't have to mess with propane. But you know, we only use them a couple hours a day.
On the propane,
during the summer.
Julia or Jesse, it's those little 5-gallon tanks that you have in an RV, and then you have to bring it to Silverthorne or whenever to get it filled, or can they actually? I mean, how do they refill those? It's just like you would on your
City
camper.
Market. You just take it to City Market and swap it out.
Swap it out. Do they do that?
Well, a lot of people, you know, there was a service where we have a cage and you might have 20. You know, the restaurants, those propane mushroom heaters use 20-pounders, and you know, there was a delivery. So Marigas was delivering and swapping them out for you, or some people it's a heck of a lot cheaper to go over to Silverthorne. But honestly, with the staffing the way it was and everything, Eric's right. About halftime, you end up just going to City Market and swapping them because that you don't have staff to do it the other way. So, but I really don't know that it's necessary to go down this route. I think it's been an interesting exercise and worth looking at, but I am not really in support of the energy side of this ordinance, just because I think it's so limited use in normal times. I did have a question though for you, Julia. I know we're asking for I think softer and warmer lights with the LEDs. That doesn't mean much to a restaurant person, you know, like myself. I would love to have the actual numbers, the specs, you know, these actual specs or less or more, whatever, because there's just lighting has gotten so complicated these days, and there's so many different ways to look at it, and it makes perfect sense to someone that's in that world. But for those of us that aren't in that world, I think instead of referring to something as subjective as warmer and softer, I think we should, if we want to go down this road, which we probably should, is to actually have specs.
We can, I can try to figure out what that means, but in the stores, the manufacturer will label them soft or warm, so it should be pretty clear.
I'll hook you up with a guy interested.
Okay.
I met him in the aisle at Home Depot when I was trying to buy some lighting, and he knows it all.
Okay.
He's Howard Carver's son-in-law. So I'll connect you with him, and I think you'll find him to be super helpful.
That'd be great. Thanks, Dick.
I agree with Dick about the specs. Back to the heating portion of it, I guess I just don't know enough as far as how many restaurants are heating during the winter and how much they're using it and that sort of thing. With that said, that makes me lean toward Kelly's scenario of, you know, you offset what you use. So if you decide, you know, to plan your business around outdoor usage, you know, all year round, well, then you have to offset that. If that's an option, I think that makes sense to me, because sure, certain restaurants might, you know, decide, okay, we only want to heat the outdoors so many days out of the year for so many hours, but I can't say that that's not going to be a trend now with outdoor dining how it is. I'm not sure.
I'm afraid we're creating a enforcement issue is really the biggest thing for me. Because anybody that's grandfathered in can currently just do this, and anybody new can't, and that just makes it more difficult on staff that you can't just go find somebody and say you need to get wind power. I don't even know how would we enforce the wind power piece? How would we enforce the 250 square foot? I just don't know. I'm a little leery that we're writing something that will be very difficult on staff.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I also, yeah, there's a lot of hypothetical to this. And yeah, like I know of one restaurant that has those heaters going all the time and they're not going to fall under this. So this might be a separate issue. I don't know.
Mayor, if I could just add wind offsets really quickly. You're right, it is really difficult to enforce what people have on their utility bills. Unless people self-disclose, we cannot get data from the utility about what people have and what they don't. The way to get around that is to require it offset on site. And that's a discussion that we'll have on the 25th when we talk about the renewable energy mitigation program and the residential and commercial larger appliances and snow melt systems and things like that. So the offset is a really good idea, and it keeps coming up as a way, if people don't want solar on their roof, for example, can't we offset it in a solar garden? But the enforcement of that is very challenging because the utility does not share that data.
Thanks, Jesse.
So Jesse, what do you recommend on this? You've heard what we're talking about.
So when I did this exercise, I just compared the different heating elements, and whether you're heating in the winter or the summer, the output's the same. So it doesn't matter. You need the number of hours that you're heating. Under today's Xcel Energy grid, it is more efficient to heat with the propane heaters, and to do so at the efficiency level, meaning, one of those 5-pound heaters, 5-pound propane tank heaters will heat 250 square feet. So if you're putting 3 in 250 square feet, the point is moot. You have too many for that space. So, if you ask me which of the two is better, propane is better today. And we can continue to look at that as Xcel gets greener on their grid. That will change. The electric piece will be better than propane in the future, but today it's not. But if you're putting, 5 heaters in a 250 square foot space, that it's overkill for sure. So I think you have to do the fuel type and the efficiency related to the square footage it's intended to heat.
Of course, in the summertime, if you go out to eat, you really want to be right next to that heater sometimes. So I don't know that they really work for 250 square feet. They might say that, but maybe that's when it's nice out, or somewhere where it's not cold.
Or when it's enclosed.
Yeah. We've all been out to dinner in a deck. You want to sit right next to that thing with that thing dumping heat on top of you.
Breathe it in, just breathe it in.
Breathe it in. Okay. So what is the council's wish? What kind of direction would you like to give the staff at this point about everything that's in here, in particular, starting with heaters? Do you want to have them look into this more, or just cut this part out?
I'm really supportive of what staff put together outside of that energy efficiency portion, and I'd be interested in exploring it as something completely separate. With this, trying to mitigate some of the impacts to outdoor spaces, I agree with everything. Removing the density requirements, under 200 square feet is fine. 50% mitigation for employee generation. So I'm supportive of everything, and would rather explore the outdoor energy use separately.
I think that was a really good way to put it, Carol, because I do want to explore the outdoor energy use, but when we're talking, the numbers 8 acres versus 10 acres, and then you have to tell someone to go trash all their electric heaters and buy new propane heaters, and and in hopefully 3 years, Xcel's back to being more green, and so we're back at electrical, or now we, require on-site solar if you're going to have outside heating, and so you're back to electrical again. I just think it's not really worth the time and investment to make this heater change. But
quick question:
as much as I want to,
the existing heaters the restaurants that have like electrical heaters, are they grandfathered in?
Yes. They are.
I agree with Carol and Kelly. Well said.
I would go with it as is.
I agree with all comments, but as I said before, I agree, or I appreciate the exercise, and Jesse, I appreciate you bringing it up. I think there will be a time and place to go down this road. Let's take the opportunity this summer, hopefully after COVID's done, to kind of do an audit and see, who's using them during the summer, and then as we roll into next winter, let's see who's still using them. I suspect we'll find that the vast majority are summer only, and just a few hours a day kind of situation, but there'll be outliers for sure. But I'm very supportive of the rest of the ordinance.
Dennis? I know Dennis's sound is broken. His microphone's broken. Who did I miss? That was everybody. I agree with what Carol said and what Dick added on after. So there you go. Does that give you something to work with, Julia?
Yeah, that's great. I'll get the contact for specs from Dick and bring that in the first reading.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for all the work too. I know it's been a ton. All right, Child Care Committee appointments. Welcome back, Austin and Corey.
Hello, Mayor and Council. The Breckenridge Child Care Advisory Committee appointment memo was in your packet. I'm here to answer any questions on the appointment recommendations and or the process of how that came to be. But before I do want to stress how impressed the selection committee was by the quality of candidates and the knowledge that they had. We truly want to thank everybody who expressed interest, and the selection decision was not an easy one.
All right.
Any questions?
Anything you want to add about the people you did select?
Oh, absolutely. I can absolutely do that. Sorry, it was in the packet.
Well, I know, but anything in particular you want to say about these people? I know Johanna and Leslie have been with us, so
yeah.
But Britton and Diana.
Yep. Britton has kids that are older than the program currently supports, but is a longtime local who lives in Blue River. We definitely looked to fill a void of, a Breckenridge business owner, and she definitely fits that mold and can speak to that. Diana Moran is an excellent addition to the committee. She formerly was at BGV and was unfortunately had to leave the workforce because not able to obtain childcare. So she is out of the workforce currently. She also works as a Spanish translator with public health. And we were overjoyed at her interest and also bringing her onto the committee, because it's as I can see the head nods, it's a very sad story that we don't hear enough, and we hear it all too often. So as I mentioned in the memo, we can go up to 10 seats. The committee during 2020 landed on that they felt like 8 was a good fit for productivity. So we are currently sitting at 8 seats with the appointments that are in front of you today.
Thank you. All right, everybody good with us?
Yes.
Shannon handed out or passed out via email a motion for later. So if you want to get that ready for later. Okay. How about we take a quick 5-minute break, and then we'll get to the e-bike discussion. Everybody good with that?
Sure.
Six. We're missing Kelly.
Oh, sorry. I unmuted, but I didn't.
Oh, hi, Kelly. All right, so we're going to do the e-bike share study presentation. Teddy?
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to update you on the e-bike share study we have just completed. But first, I want to provide you with a little bit of background on why we did the study. We staff believe that an e-bike share system is in alignment with many of the town adopted goals. From the destination management plan, you know, 2 of the 4 goals being more boots and bikes, less cars. And then also to establish Breckenridge at the leading edge in environmental stewardship and sustainable practices. From the town adopted climate action plan, we have our overall goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030 and 80% by 2050. And we know that currently transportation accounts for about 1/3 of those greenhouse gas emissions. And the climate action plan's recommended strategy for the transportation sector is to discourage single-use or single occupancy vehicles through a bunch of options or a bunch of methods. So in order to do that, we have to offer alternatives, and we think an e-bike share system can be an alternative. Also, the EV readiness plan, which the town adopted, while it didn't focus on e-bikes, it does mention e-bike share as an equity and inclusion initiative for offering electric transportation option for those that may not be able to buy an EV. So an e-bike share system makes progress on our climate action and destination management plan goals by reducing greenhouse gas emissions, providing alternatives to private vehicle usage, increasing transportation options, especially for first and last mile connections with the transit system, and also reducing congestion around town. And as a silver lining, they're fun and enjoyable way to get around. So, and then I should also mention that the town was awarded a grant from CDOT's Multimodal Options Fund for up to $420,000 to fund the study and then subsequent implementation of an e-bike share system. So we have about $370,000 remaining in grant matching dollars to move forward with an implementation. And the study has estimated the one-time startup costs for full system implementation to be around $575,000, and then annual operating costs to be between $187,000 to $262,000 a year. So now that I've set the stage a bit, I would like to introduce Libby Nachman and Jean Crowther, who are consultants from Alta Planning and Design, who will walk us through just a few slides to go over the recommendations from our study.
Thanks, Daddy. All right.
Hi, everyone. Hi, good evening, Council and Mayor. Thanks so much for having us. As Teddy said, my name is Libby Nachman, and I'm joined by my colleague, Jean Crowther. And I'll be running through the key recommendations of the feasibility study that was conducted last summer and fall. Hop to our first recommendation slide, thank you. So the first recommendation I'll be discussing is the system type. Alta reviewed multiple system types, including dock systems and dockless systems, before recommending a hybrid system. A hybrid system is also known as a smart bike system. This is a system where the transactions to unlock the bike are housed on the bike itself instead of at a station, which can lead to lower capital costs. A hybrid system is the same type of system run in Colorado Springs, also known as Bike Ride, and there's an image on the slide here so you can see what that bike looks like. Hybrid systems use hubs made up of branded bike racks to help organize where bikes are parked and reduce the clutter that can impede the right-of-way. And hybrid bike systems are also unique in that they use geofencing or virtual boundary setting controlled by GPS on the bikes to control where bikes can park. Next slide, please. So the recommendation for the service area utilizes that geofencing technology. The project team recommends that in the downtown core, which is highlighted on this map, bikes are only allowed to park at designated hubs. But outside of the downtown core, users may lock to either a hub or to a secure parking location, such as a crack. And we arrived at these recommendations based on the community outreach that we conducted last year. Community members and bike rental shops were concerned around bikes blocking sidewalks, particularly in downtown on busy Main Street. And so the recommendation that bikes be locked only to a hub in that downtown area really came from that goal to keep sidewalks clear and keep bike share bikes in a separate location from the bike rental shops. But outside of the downtown core, the ability to park at a hub or at a bike rack really takes advantage of the flexibility of the hybrid system type. Users can park their bikes closer to their destination even if there isn't a hub nearby. Next slide. Moving on to governance, the project team recommends that the town of Breckenridge own bike share equipment, which includes the bikes and the hubs, and contract out operations to a private vendor. Town ownership will help the town work towards the sustainability goals that Teddy outlined by giving the town more control over the system, and will also help build community trust with the system, which could increase ridership. Bringing in the outside operator will allow the town to gain the expertise of a private operator that has experience in other communities. Next slide. The final recommendation I will share is around the recommended system pricing. This pricing structure is very similar to what is being currently implemented in Aspen. We're recommending that bike share is free for the first 30 minutes to match the structure you have for your free ride bus system, which offers free rides. But after 30 minutes, users will be assessed a fee between $1 and $5 a minute, depending on whether the user qualifies for a reduced fee as a member of the workforce, a student, or is low income. And the purpose of the fee is to encourage the bikes to use for transportation purposes, so getting to and from work, running errands, and then not to be used for recreational purposes. And if users want to rent a bike for a recreational trip that might take longer than 30 minutes, they'll be incentivized to rent an e-bike from a bike rental shop. So as I noted earlier, this structure is in place in Aspen and has worked well for both their bike share system and the bike rental shops there. With that, I'll pass it back to Teddy to talk about next steps.
Thank you, Libby. So this e-bike share system, it does represent a significant infrastructure investment to support sustainable transportation options for people to get around town. And if implemented correctly, we view it as being woven into the fabric of the community, much in the same way as our free ride bus system is. If council approves, staff would like to move forward with a pilot e-bike share system launch this year with 11 hubs and 55 e-bikes. And then after learning from the pilot, we would then seek to bring online an additional 14 hubs and 70 e-bikes the following summer, starting in 2023, to bring us to a full system implementation that has a grand total of 25 hubs and 125 e-bikes. With supply chain disruptions impacting the industry, it's difficult to forecast exactly when the pilot launch might happen. So we would like to get started on the RFP process as soon as possible to find and select a vendor who can provide the equipment and operate the system for us. Goal would be to have the pilot launched in time to showcase it during the MT 2030 Climate Solution Summit that's being held in Breckenridge this September. And a budget appropriation would be required after we've received proposals from vendors. So I think I'll stop there because I know you all have lots of questions and we would love to answer them.
Thanks, Teddy. All right, questions?
What's the pilot program? Teddy, how many bikes again?
55 e-bikes with 11 hubs,
11 hubs,
is the pilot that we're looking to do this year.
Do we have, I know when Libby was talking, she had some photos. Do we have a photo of what a hub might look like?
I don't know. Let's see. Let me see if I can pull one up here.
And where would they be? Would they be on, obviously it had to be on town property. Would they be would it be interfering with egress or any sort of pedestrian walking or right away?
Town property or within the right of way is where they would be placed. So, and we would try to avoid blocking anything that's going to cause any issues.
Okay.
Or participating private property owners that are interested in having an e-bike share hub, we would definitely be interested in working them. But so here's a quick little picture of a kind of what an e-bike share hub might look like. Did that come up?
Oh,
oh, I thought
looked like us.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought I had it pulled up. Let me.
The guy in the second from the left is really good looking though.
I think you need to share your screen again.
Yeah, I gotcha. Try that.
Okay. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's a little bit large. If we're gonna have 55 bikes and 11 hubs, it would probably be 5, 4 or 5 bikes per hub. So it would be a fraction of that size, correct?
Correct. Yeah, the ones that Alta has recommended have bike racks for up to 8 bikes, and kind of the industry standard is recommended to have 5 bikes per bike racks at your hubs. Did I get that right, Libby?
Yeah, and I'll just add that you can do it different ways. Like obviously this image does have a lot of bikes. You generally want to balance the bikes based on demand. So areas where you might have more folks checking out bikes, you might have more, and then areas where less demand, you might have fewer, and that can always be adjusted throughout the system. And what we've recommended is a little bit more leaning towards the slightly smaller size while still staying in industry standard, just to give more flexibility for folks in the town. So we're spreading out more hubs, but smaller numbers of bikes so that they're more accessible. People can find them easier.
In Aspen, who's using these bikes?
As far as like the demographic of people that are using it?
Like visitors or people who live there?
Gotcha. Livy, do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I can take that one. So yeah, as part of the study, we did some case studies and talked directly to Aspen. And what we were hearing from them is they're seeing about a 50-50 split between visitors and locals. The system that we're designing for you all in Breckenridge is putting a slightly higher emphasis on the local workforce as the user group. So that's sort of how the system is designed, but there's definitely seeing usage between visitors and.
And what do you see locals doing with these bikes?
Definitely getting to and from work, getting to and from bus stops, short trips around town, 30 minutes or less, running errands, that sort of thing.
You have to return the bike to the original destination?
So yes, well, not to the original destination, but kind of what the study has outlined is in the downtown core, bikes must be returned to one of the designated bike hubs. And that's to avoid the kind of cluttering effect that Libby referred to, where they can be just left anywhere with dockless systems. Outside of that, geo-fenced bubble that we would draw around the downtown core, the bikes could be left anywhere, or they have to be locked to something, but they can be locked anywhere.
Yeah, and they are designed for one-way trips, so not really for that round trip. And we're hoping that it can really complement some of the existing transportation that you have. So I know that the bus, for example, doesn't run 24/7, but there may be folks that are working late shifts and need another option to get home. Bike share could fill that gap. We've also taken steps to co-locate the bike share hubs at transit stops, so folks can use bikes to get home from a transit stop. Maybe folks that were previously driving because it was too far, they can use bikes to connect to from transit.
And they'll have lights?
Yes, lights are standards on bike share bikes.
So say I wanted to commute. I don't really understand how this works can I just take a bike to my house and lock it to something and then just use it in the morning and I just have a bike that is sort of my own then? It doesn't really make much sense to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Go ahead.
Go ahead, Teddy.
No, Gene, I'll let you take this one.
I was just gonna say that's a common question, especially if you are a bike rider or a bike user and you're used to using your own personal one. But I'll just say, big picture, bike share has shown its staying power and popularity, for over a decade of getting used in U.S. cities. And what it helps with is some of the parts of riding a bike that, someone may feel less comfortable with or is kind of a hassle. Finding bike parking at your destination, having to commit to riding your bike for the ride home. Sometimes being able to ride to work and then take the bus to whatever your after work destination is and then, you know, home means you're not tied down to having to keep it with you for the entirety of your trip or the entirety of your day. So those kinds of things, and also just in terms of using it for commuting, bike share systems, you know, it's a shared fleet and they do operate with a little bit of an element of kind of serendipity or kind of working as a fleet. So you may take a share bike to your office, park it at a spot. That same bike is probably not going to be there in that same spot, you know, 8 hours later, but a system is functioning with trips happening all over and you have an you know, generally there's going to be one nearby that you can use. And on top of that, there's an operational model that's really been dialed in, you know, after 10 years of these systems operating, where bikes are rebalanced so that they are clustered in the spaces where there's higher demand for people finding them at certain times of the day.
So there's
Does that help?
Well, yeah, sort of. I still just don't.
Yeah, but if you don't have to put it on a docking system, why wouldn't you just bring it home and lock it up and then bring it back down the next day?
Yes, you
That's
could.
only oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
You could ride the bike home. A couple of things there. One, you know, most of the systems will show, you know, bike availability or where bikes are located on a map on the app. So someone could come and check out the bike that you parked at your house and take it. That's one thing that could happen. Or also, we would probably have some operational staff that would periodically go through and rebalance bikes. So if a bike got rode on a one-way trip out to some far-flung destination, there's going to be someone that's going to go collect that bike, bring it back to the hubs or more central locations for people to use.
And am I understanding correctly that the dockless part where you just need to lock it to something, that's only in downtown? Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, the docked requirement would be only in the downtown core, downtown area. Outside of that, we were hoping to not, you know, provide a little bit more flexibility and not make it strictly where you have to lock the bike at the hubs.
So,
Go ahead.
But you do have to lock it to something.
Yeah.
Which is an important distinction, yeah.
With a lock that's provided?
Yes.
Yes.
So these only can be used via your smartphone, correct?
For the most part, that is the predominant way, but there's also options where you could get like an RFID card or some kind of card for people that don't have a smartphone. They'd have to come into an office to set up an account and get that card to do that, but yes.
But that card would be associated with an individual.
With an individual
who they
account,
are.
yes, that's correct.
Okay. And this is a question for Kirsten. Any liability for the town on this? Some Yahoo gets hit?
You know, this is taking place in so many cities, and I know we discussed this in Denver, and I think there's a way to have, you know, use, signing up for use to kind of waive that sort of liability. But I will go back and look at what we did in Denver because we did discuss this issue and take care of it. I think it can be addressed.
So are these geofenced so that they don't go past a certain place? Or can you ride it to Frisco and leave it there?
Yeah, yes. So there would be, in addition to the kind of the geofence requirement around downtown, there would also be kind of a system geofence, probably mostly around, you know, the town limits that would probably cut off the functionality of the electric assist. And then also, you're not going to be able to end your session once you're outside of that system parameters. So as long as your session is still active, eventually you're going to hit that 30-minute mark. They're going to start charging you $5 a minute. So there's a strong incentive for you to, you know, keep it within the town. They are bicycles, so even without the electric assist, theoretically, someone could, you know, check one out and then ride it to Frisco. But again, they're not going to be able to end their session there. They're going and you know, the electric assist function probably wouldn't work outside of the town limits.
Probably wouldn't or definitely wouldn't?
Libby, can you help me with that one?
Because that was a big deal for the retailers. Like they want to make sure people cannot be riding these to Frisco because that's a huge part of their business.
Yeah, and I mean, the honest answer is that's gonna depend on the vendor. I mean, that's gonna be a key part of the RFP is having that geofencing technology and that ability to control the bikes. So that's gonna be something that will be considered when selecting the vendor and the equipment.
Okay. Was there any thought put in on, instead of having lots and lots of different little hubs, maybe stationing the vast majority of hubs in our workforce housing neighborhoods, and then having like 1 or 2 hubs in downtown, just so that this truly was getting, you know, cars off the road and not just kind of a sightseeing venture when people walk by with a group of 5 and then check out all the bikes that are there?
Yes, yes. So let me just pull up the map here. Okay. It's not great, but this was kind of the proposed bike share hub locations that Alta has recommended. And there are bike hubs, kind of one over by Wellington with the pilot phase, one over by Blue 52. And then, you know, once we get to the full system implementation and with Alta Verde coming online, we would love to be able to put one out there. So that would be 3 workforce housing neighborhoods right there. So yes, that thought was definitely put into it.
But I mean, I'm just thinking like 5 bikes is not enough, maybe not enough, or maybe not the right number necessarily. And I know this is the pilot. Yep. But I'm just trying to figure out, like, I'm very concerned that this is going to be something that's fun to do, you know, just for people who are walking around town. And I'm trying to figure out if there is a way that we could truly make this specifically or more directed towards workforce. Like maybe, do they ever have reservation systems so that you could reserve it? You'd know it would be there at 7 a.m. and then you would know it'd be there at 5 p.m.
Go
ahead.
So I can jump in. So one of the recommendations that we have for following the pilot, the great thing about these smart bikes is they collect a lot of data. So the operator running it is going to know where bikes are starting at what time, where they're ending, what time, where it's busy, where it's not busy, where all those that demand is, and where people want to find them. And the system is flexible, so the hubs are, you know, the branded bike racks. They're not going to be really physically installed necessarily. So there's flexibility to move them around, to change things where demand is needed. So I would anticipate a little bit of, you know, the pilot phase and maybe a little bit of the first year, getting a sense of how things are working. And then there's a lot of flexibility to adjust to make sure that you're providing bikes where folks are needing bikes. So making sure that they're getting rebalanced, that there are enough bikes at locations where people to get to work.
Is there, whoever we go with the concessionaire, is there a maintenance schedule? They perform all the maintenance on the bike, check brakes and all that?
Yes, that would be part of what we'd be asking them to do.
So I really liked the comment, and I could see myself using it this way too, of the ability to go to the grocery store. Have you seen in other areas, I don't know, any kind of attachment or anything that would help facilitate a grocery load?
I've seen several e-bike share systems that at least have a small front basket rack. Libby, would you say that you've seen some cargo options for some of these?
I would say cargo options are new on the scene. That can definitely be something that's requested in the RFP about what cargo options exist. It is very standard to have a front basket. You know, depending on your grocery load, you know, could be the front basket and a backpack could suffice. You know, it would depend on what you're purchasing.
Okay, thanks.
So help me with the geofencing in downtown. So if you're within that area and you try to just leave it on the sidewalk, you won't be able to end your session, correct?
That's correct.
Will it instruct you to go find a hub, or, you know, we have a hard time really educating a lot of our guests. You know, they're going to want to rent one of these things, and I'd be really surprised if they read everything that's there when they leave. And I'm really concerned. You know, $5 a minute, you know, that adds up pretty quickly, and we're going to have some people that are pretty disappointed, and they're just not going to understand. They're just going to walk away from the thing, you know, downtown, and so that concerns me quite a bit. The other piece is, how long does a charge last if they are not docked, if they're outside of the core and just left on a sidewalk somewhere?
Gotcha. I'll ask the first part. I'll answer the first part and I'll let Libby answer the second part. Yes, I mean, we would need to be very clear with the instructions on, you know, bikes must be returned to hubs in the downtown core. You know, if they're using the app to check out the bike, there could be some kind of banner ad at the top that says, you know, you must park your bike at a hub in order to end your session, to try to communicate that messaging as clearly as we can. And then Libby, did you want to answer the second part of that?
Just add that with some technology, the bike physically, the lock will not engage as well. So in addition to the messaging that comes through in the app, it'll be like physically impossible to lock the bike. So it'll be kind of clear that the session is not ended.
And what kind of comments did you have from the public outreach to the bike rental shops?
I will say the bike rental shops were not particularly excited about the prospect of it. And we did pitch them several different ideas and ways in which e-bike share systems have coexisted and cooperated successfully with bike shops and other places, but still a lot of them viewed it as a threat to the bottom line and to, you know, their business model. That being said, the fee structure that we've recommended here, where it's free for the first 30 minutes and $5 a minute after that, you know, we did that specifically, you know, so that people that want to, you know, rent an e-bike for the day are still going to, it's still going to make sense to go use the e-bikes, you know, rental places. So I don't view this as putting any of our bike shops out of business. And you know, we're very interested in trying to partner with them in several aspects of the program.
Let me ask you this, Teddy. So say someone Blue 52 and they're going to go to work downtown.
Yeah.
So they take the e-bike, they go down to town, and the docking station's full. And if once they lock the bike, they're still paying $5 a minute if the bike's just locked to a telephone pole?
Yes, I mean, we would need to figure out a way. We'd have to keep up with the balancing of the bikes so that, you know, that's not an issue. And if there was a scenario in which there was no way for them to, you know, be able to end their session and lock their bike, you know, reconciling that somehow. Livy, do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a common issue in other similar systems. And so the way that that's solved is, you know, one, either looking for another station that had, or, you know, a hub that has space. And also, you know, there would be exceptions for like fees waived or, you know, an exception allowing the bike to be parked, you know, to a bike rack or something if there was no other option. But as Teddy said, rebalancing is the way to get ahead of that and prevent that.
Are you guys anywhere else? Are you geofencing a certain part of a community and then have, you know, one set of rules within, like we're doing here, like we're proposing in Breck, where it's one set of rules in the core and then a different set of rules elsewhere? Has that been done successfully anywhere else that you're aware of?
Yeah, well, I'll just say that, you know, Alta is not a bike share vendor, so we are not doing that ourselves, but we that's very common in other communities using geofencing to delineate a number of rules. There are communities, for example, there's communities where there's pedestrian only trails, and so the bike share bikes aren't allowed, or scooters, for example, and the geofencing, as Teddy said, might cut off the motor on those. I think there's even new technologies where the vehicles make a very annoying sound when you cross somewhere that you're not supposed to be. That new technology is coming out. So this is a very common use of the technology to delineate where folks are allowed to park or ride.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you can configure the app so that you have to agree to the rules before proceeding. Is that correct? Or like you have to actually check. I think when I've used it recently in Burlington, and I think you had to check like, okay, I understand this rule, I understand this rule, I understand this rule. So it won't come as a surprise.
Yes, I think that's pretty standard arrangement, is to, have, when they're setting up an account, here are the rules of the system that you're agreeing to by creating an account.
The questions?
Is what I was I'm just really curious, what is the point of this women are less likely to bike? Does this somehow resolve that data, or why is that in the report?
Because Jeffrey wrote it.
Does this help that scenario? Is that why we put that out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. That was a finding of the survey that we felt was interesting and useful for the town to know, just for in general supporting bicycling in the town. And a bike share system is really viewed as part of the whole ecosystem of a biking culture and community. So, this should work in tandem with existing bike facilities and other programs and policies that you have in place to encourage bicycling. And so we just wanted to share that piece of information to help as you all pursue your sustainability goals in transportation.
Were these people residents or just anyone who logged into the survey?
The vast majority were residents.
Other questions?
They wouldn't obviously be allowed to be on the sidewalk, but I guess they would be driving on Main Street?
Yeah.
Biking on Main Street?
Certainly they'd be able to, ride the bikes down Main Street. Yes.
That's a terrifying thought.
Okay.
That's what the woman said, Kelly.
But not women. Women can't ride down the Main Street. Men can, because they have a long history of riding bikes.
Well, the women wear bloomers and stuff, right? Like, on the petticoats.
Oh my goodness. Okay, let's have some comments and figure out where we're going with this. Who wants to start?
Okay. I would give this a try, but with trepidation. I see this, if it's just locals, if it's locals using it, I'm feeling a little more confident. But I think if it's just going to be someone that's not quite acquainted with biking in general, and then jump on this thing, and I have an e-bike, and I think we could have some accidents and injuries. I don't mind trying this thing. I have a lot of questions as far as how it's going to work if someone wants it to go into town, like we talked about, docking stations full, they have to look around for another docking station. And, we'll make exceptions if they can't find a docking station and if they chain the bike. So I'm worried about this. I don't think, I'm not gonna put the kibosh on it, but I'm concerned how this is gonna work. And I'm also concerned how it's gonna affect at least the perception of the bike shops. I don't think at $5 a minute, it's gonna affect the bottom line of the bike shops. But I do think, in a sense, town is competing with a business.
Who's next? Aaron?
Yeah, so I think this is really exciting. I do support this. I think we really do need to be thoughtful of how we can restrict this just to a commute. I think that this is an important step if we do want people to come here and not rely on their cars, to get people really out of their cars and able to go to a different town and move around just the town. I mean, I don't see this as substituting for a bike rental or an activity. When I used it in Burlington, it was exactly for this reason. I didn't want to rent a car. I wanted to get around the city in a different way. And there's a hill right in the middle of Burlington. So it was really helpful. And it was a fun way we were going to a farmer's market, and that was the destination. It was really easy to find where the bikes were. And there were multiple hubs. I'm not sure I'm fully behind not using the hubs in certain scenarios, and others I agree. I think that's a really tough scenario for people to wrap their heads around. If the rules are one way in certain scenarios, others in other scenarios. I do like Kelly's idea of, starting with the locals and seeing how that goes. But I'm a fan. I think if it is scary for more people to be biking on our roads, I think we need to address that too. Because if this is our goal at the end of the day for people to use bikes, even locals who already have bikes, I think we need to look at that. But I think it's really interesting.
Carol?
I'm more with Jeffrey. I'll support it as a living trial, and I think it's something that we need to see an application to see if it's truly working towards our advancing our goals, and it's not just a fun toy in town, that it's really advancing our green initiatives. I do have a lot of skepticism about the serendipity, this whole hybrid system that I think the example was Colorado Springs, which is a very different community for ours. Aspen is just doing hubs, and I'd love to have a little more information there to see if it would work better. The fact that the bike needs to be locked up, I think that would be helpful in making sure there's not bikes in the middle of the sidewalk, because that is a nightmare for anyone in a wheelchair, anyone in a stroller. The other big issue I'm seeing is one of our main systems in place to advance more bikes in town is our free ride system, and our free ride system is struggling because of staffing needs. And how much more pressure is this e-bike system going to put on staff, and if it'll truly complement that or be somewhat of a headache for staff. So overall, I'm supportive of trying it, but I do have a lot of skepticism under the application.
Thanks, Carol. Dennis, can you talk yet, or are you thumbs up, thumbs down, sideways? What?
Yeah, or Dennis, can you talk, or?
No, he just gave a thumbs up.
Okay. I'm skeptical. I could probably be talked into it as a hub only system that is geared towards commuting. So the hubs are only located in workforce housing neighborhoods, and then say at the gondola and maybe Main Street Station, some primary in-town locations, but docked only. The hybrid really concerns me. We are an extremely crowded town, busy town during the summer, adding a lot of bicycles to the mix seems dangerous and concerning, particularly with the tourist population that's not as experienced in riding around. I'm also I'm concerned at the dollar amount. I see the free ride. Eric mentioned it earlier. The free ride, I think, is a higher priority for us to focus on and invest in, and get it back to where it was. But yeah, I'm skeptical. Maybe I could be talked into if the budget seemed reasonable to do a dock system only that focuses on commuting.
Kelly?
Yeah, I'm really sad to say I feel the same. I'm very skeptical. I just think with how many visitors outnumber our locals in this community, I just don't see this being bikes available for commuters. I think they'll be used by people who are visiting, which is wonderful. And I think that's, like Aaron, I too have experienced them and had fun on them when I've been a tourist in other places, but we were just riding around. It didn't take a car off of a road. So I guess I'm really struggling to see how this plan in particular meets our initiative to get cars off of the road. And because of how expensive it is, my very strong preference would be to, I know that Jesse just put an RFP out for kind of a climate master plan on what we should be doing next to really meet our goals in the overall climate action plan. And I would love, I want to see e-bikes come to Breck. I think that there might be a good way to incorporate them into our overall plan. But I think just doing a small pilot program like this, I just see as getting used by visitors, and I don't see it really impacting cars on the roads. And so I'm not interested in supporting it at this time.
Eric, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention my other piece of being skeptical is every bike shop owner that I've talked to a small handful, and they are extremely concerned about it, not supportive.
Yeah, thanks, Dick. And that's where I'll start. I mean, a handful of years ago, we did a big outreach because we were talking about looking into something like this. And I actually sat down with Shannon and Rick and multiple bike shop owners, and they were not happy that we were even talking about it. So that's a concern. The staffing piece is a concern. It seems like there's some reliance really on this balancing the system, which I just, we're barely hanging on right now with staff we have. And that's not I don't know that is a temporary thing right now with the staffing. The system is just, I think, to sort of Kelly's point, it seems like it's going to be too easy for it to be a fun thing for a tourist to do. And that is just not, with this amount of money, I don't want to create another attraction for people to just jump on an e-bike and ride around town. They can do that through a shop. I mean, honestly, the money that we're going to spend on this, I would rather put into an information campaign for the free ride, to be perfectly honest with you. I probably am the least supportive of this. And not because it's bikes or e-bikes, but I don't think this works in our town. I mean, honestly, I would rather buy Blue 52 5 e-bikes and the Wellington neighborhood 5 e-bikes and let them just use the e-bikes in these neighborhoods. I think you'd get more commuter use out of them than me taking a bike and going up to my neighborhood where there's only 6 homes and locking the bike up and nobody will ever touch that bike. I just use that thing all summer long. And that will happen in some places, I'm afraid. And when we talk about 50% use amongst tourists, that is just, that is not a system that I want any part of for this town. Is that honestly, nothing against tourists, but that's not what we would do this for. This would be for getting cars off the road for our commuters, and I would rather enhance the free ride. So, Teddy, you can distill all those comments. I saw you taking notes and figure out what the next step is. Jeffrey?
Also, just one thing. Also, I'd like Kirsten to just investigate any sort of liability. I had my leg x-ray this summer, and the x-ray guy said that at St. Anthony's, just e-bikes from shops is big business. I just want to find out if there's any sort of liability for the town.
Maybe they'll pay for the program.
I'm happy to look into it. You are, immune, as this would not be considered a waived area as a general proposition. But yes, I will look at what other communities have done, because I know this has been discussed and addressed, and we can follow up.
All right. Jean and Libby, thank you. And Teddy, thanks for all the work on this. It was a great presentation. So
thank you.
Great questions. Okay, we have 4 minutes before we start the night meeting. So we will break from here. And are we going to stay in this room, Shannon? Do we go to a different Zoom, or do we just?
No, for your regular meeting, you stay here.
Okay, great.
One quick question. Kirsten is doing some checking and I just missed a call from her, but Dennis, is it possible for you to call in so we can hear you verbally vote on the legislative items? Awesome. Thank you.
And we will begin the night meeting in just 3 minutes. Helen, we're gonna take comment like we did before, right? So at the start of the meeting, I'm actually gonna say, we'll take public comment.
Yeah, but you're going to say they need to raise their hand and then they will be allowed to speak. So use the raise hand feature.
Okay. So we're not gonna have them type stuff this time.
No,
Okay.
thank you for checking.
That is a little different than we did before. So will we bring them over then?
Yes, Chris Liberto will be bringing them over.
Okay.
Well, you won't see them. He will just allow them to speak as they raise hands.
Okay. And then Lucy will go after that. Hi, Lucy.
Rick, any idea if next time we'll be on Zoom as well, or we just have to wait and figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, our numbers went back up, so. We were at 2,200, now we're back to 25, so we're not going in the right direction.
What's the magic number we're trying to get to? Don't say zero.
Zero.
I knew you'd say zero.
I'd like to get out of the thousands, honestly.
I think 1,000 is a good number.
Well, if we can get below 1,000, that's something, that's kind of what we're talking about with staff, and, to not trying to limit the exposure of people. If it's one thing, if it's just bringing, 7 of you together in that media environment, but then we still have to think about how we're dealing with the public and all the staff and everything else. So
yeah,
food and the whole issue. And I want to set an example. So
yeah, no, I got you, man. So probably at least through the 25th, and then we re-examine for the February meetings.
It's probably, if I was to make a guess right now, I'd say we're not going to see that much drop in 2 weeks. So we probably would plan for very similar, and then February hopefully would be.
All right. That's not the news I was looking for, Rick. Thanks for nothing.
I don't know. It pains me to disappoint you.
I know. Oh, well. All right, who are we waiting on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just Erin. All right, there she is. Excellent. It is 7 o'clock, and I am going to call to order the Town Council regular meeting for the 11th of January, 2022. Happy New Year, everyone. We start with roll call. Helen, please.
Ms. Sade.
Here.
Mr. Carlton.
Here.
Mr. Bergeron.
Here.
Ms. Owens.
Here.
Ms. Giello.
Here.
Mr. Kuhn. Did we get him?
He's not on there anymore, so we're gonna have to.
We're going to take a pause here while he gets back on.
We do we want to give him a second or do we want?
Yeah, let's just give him a minute and then we're going to continue. I don't want to hold the whole meeting up.
And just while we're waiting, I'll say I did just pull your virtual policy, and it talks about, taking roll call vote and hearing and having the members clearly be able to hear and communicate. I don't necessarily know that virtual meant phone call, but I think because we don't have any hearings, it's okay. But we do need to be able to hear his vote and record it verbally. Oh, there we go.
Thank you, Kirsten. Dennis, can you hear us?
Say something.
I think we need to move his phone over to panelist.
Yep. Give me 1 second, please. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Dennis, can you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we do. All right.
Okay, Mr. Kuhn.
Yes.
There you go. Mayor Mamula.
Here. All right. Town council meetings for December 14th, 2021. Does anybody have anything to add, change, correct, delete? Note, minutes stand as presented. Agenda, Rick?
Under new business, other, we need to add a motion to appoint child care committee members.
Okay. You guys got that? We'll do that under other. Thank you, Rick. With that, the agenda is approved. Communications to council. Okay, it's time for citizens' comments if you are so inclined. In order to do this tonight, use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen, and we will be able to hear you. And going to give everybody just a minute here to do that if they'd like. Okay, does it look like Dennis, can you maybe mute your phone? I'm getting a lot of feedback. Does everybody else hear that? And then you could just unmute when you want to talk. Okay, with that, nobody's raised their hand, so we're going to move on and end citizens' comments and go to the Breckenridge.
Sorry, we do have someone who raised their hand.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, oh, awesome. I just want to chime in. It seems like we talked, or you guys talked a little bit about.
Can you, before you start, can you tell us who you are?
Oh, of course. Yeah, my name's Garen. I moved to Breckenridge last year. I live kind of up near the Snowflake Lift area.
Aaron, we need a last name for you. Thank you.
Oh, sure. Riechel, R-I-E-C-H-E-L.
Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to chime in and talk a little bit about the traffic and the biking issue. I've noticed like a definite uptick in traffic, especially on the gondola around 4 p.m., just to be expected. And I think that I would love to just say that it might be a good idea to take this into consideration when thinking about the biking program. Like, I don't think that most of the traffic here is because people are commuting. I think it is because of the tourists. And so framing the discussion around, bike program for the local commuters is maybe not the target audience. I don't have a solution, obviously, but I do agree, I think, with Aaron, who mentioned that if the problem is our infrastructure cannot support bicycling because it's too scary, that might be a separate issue. And I just kind of wanted to +1 that. And I know there's a bike lane on Main Street. I'm terrified to bike down it. It'd be great if we could fix that somehow. That's all I got, but thank you so much for leading this discussion.
Hey, thanks very much for the comment. We appreciate it.
Sure.
Shannon, anyone else?
Looks like that's it.
All right. Well, Garen, we'll definitely take those comments as we're working through this. So thank you very much for listening in tonight. All right, with that, we end citizens' comments and go to the BTO update. Lucy Kay. Hello, Lucy.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Nice to see everyone. I'll just do a few brief stats and then we'll jump into the snow sculpture, some updates on the snow sculpture. Quickly, over the Christmas holiday, we ended up with room nights occupied will be similar to 2019. We were up about 10 points every single night compared to last year. So we'll come in close to 2019. For the month of December, nights occupied were up 16%. And what is really significant is ADR for the month is up 34%, which is high. Looking at the whole winter season, let me just get rid of this box on my screen. I'm looking at the whole winter season, nights occupied already or on the books. We're looking at up 37%. That will still move. ADR for the whole winter is up 26%. So should be some pretty decent revenue numbers coming in. Demographics for the time periods, and this is from the Intercept surveys, the man on the street surveys. Year to date, our out of state is down just a few points, but our day visitors are up pretty significantly. We're at 38% of total visitors are day visitors compared to 30% 2 years ago. So that's a pretty significant shift year to date. It has to do with snow conditions and a whole lot of things, I think. Similar Christmas demos were pretty similar to prior years, so I won't worry about that. What's significant in the Intercept surveys results so far is our net promoter scores, not surprisingly, are down, but they're down really significantly. Year to date, we're down 5 points. We're at 79. And at Christmas period, we were down 16 points, down to 72. It is rare for Breck to ever be in the 70s. So it's not surprising. It's understandable with the staffing challenges and everything, but it's really showing up in the net promoter score. So it really speaks to how much we need to support our front line and, make sure that they know how critically important they are and all of that. The safety scores, how we ask people how safe they feel while they're in Breckenridge, they're comparable to prior to last year. So on a scale of 1 to 10, we're like a 8.7, 8.9 in there. So just a quick snapshot of where we've been. Looking forward to snow sculpture, we decided on Friday was our go, no go day in terms of whether we could run the event. A lot of teams asked for more time so they could figure out if they could really travel or not. So on Friday, we decided we could move forward. We had one team drop today. So right now we have 9 teams that will be participating, including 3 international. The resort finished snowmaking today, and Scott's team will start moving snow tomorrow night. And I'll just have to say here, we had a meeting yesterday with Public Works, Transit, Parking, and that whole group, even though everybody's crushed with, staffing and just all the challenges we have, Nobody's talking about what they can do. They're just talking about what they can get done, given what we've got to work with. And I think everybody's attitude is so amazing. But we have some huge challenges in front of us. We talked about the percent of parking, the parking occupancy that we've been seeing on weekends so far in the 80–90%, and that's without a big event on the weekend. We know the resort has bombers and other ski school programs happening on our big viewing day, which is going to be the 29th of January. So we came out of that meeting, I was convinced we absolutely have to try the reservations. The reservation system will be, you can make a reservation online. It's actually through Breckinridge, but you'll link to it through our site. And it's only for that Saturday, that big viewing Saturday, the 29th. Be 3 kind of windows of time, 10 to 12, 12 to 2, 2 to 4. You can come anytime within that window. And it's a free reservation. We will have a list of names and check people in as they show up. And I want to be clear that the point of this is not so much that we want to limit or manage people. We can handle people. We're going to have one-way traffic in the, on the site and things like that to help us in social distancing. But we are really trying to do everything we can to dissuade extra cars only on that Saturday. So if we can shave off a couple percent of people that may have driven up Saturday and convince them that Sunday through Wednesday is really going to be a better experience. That is what we are trying to accomplish. So we know it's going to be messy. We know everybody's not going to get the memo, but we're going to go ahead and try this. We did initially come up with this pre-COVID. So it does help with COVID and social distancing in that on the site, but the real reason here is we want to try to, do everything we can to just help mitigate some of the traffic and parking congestion that we know we're in for on that day. So I know, Jeffrey, you said earlier that you had something you wanted to ask about relative to this.
Yeah, I just wonder on the snow sculpting, it's so much more powerful in the evening. And now we're talking about the parking structure, making it free after 3. Is there any message we could get out to these folks to, if they're coming from the Front Range or whatever, leave it noon or leave it 1 and get up here? They can just cruise right into the parking structure for free and walk there. I don't know, maybe with a variable message board or something like that. Or is it too late?
We have a pretty comprehensive communication plan that we're just getting in place today, but we hadn't tied in the free after 3 piece. And I think that combined with, we have the nighttime message, of course, but to combine it with the free parking in the structure after 3, I think helps that. So we can build that in, can do that.
Well, we gotta get it approved first. So.
Oh, yeah.
There is that. Maybe just for that one day, it's Saturday. It's going to be busy every day, but
I'm guessing at a minimum, we could do something on Saturday.
Yeah.
The one thing I'll just add for consideration is that we think about the people leaving at the end of the ski day and inviting people in at around the same time, and what that could potentially do to traffic congestion within town. It may not be the time we want to be telling people you should drive into the core of town. So just something to think about.
Good point.
Well, the stuff that went out today is really encouraging people. Certainly welcome anytime. When the Sunday through Wednesday will be the best experience. And the way we're framing it, we're starting with that. So Sunday through Wednesday is the best experience. If you want to come Saturday, just please know you need a reservation between 10 and 4. After 4 is fine. So we'll see.
Hey, Lucy, I have a question about that promoter score.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have the comments like grouped in representative comments so that we could read some of that feedback?
Yeah, we can do that. I don't know how, if it's grouped, but we certainly have all the comments. And, you know, given the volume we have so far, it wouldn't be too much to just plow through.
Okay.
So I'll ask Bill to coordinate that, and we'll get that to you, Kelly.
I'd really like to see that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lucy, I would too, any drill down information that we can get out of that. That's.
You know, what we can do is we'll do an executive summary of what's in those comments. So you can see that. And then if you want to get in and read all of it, you know, certainly you can. So we'll work on that. Give us just a day or two to organize that for you.
Thanks so much.
Sure.
You know, on that, the same thing with the net promoter score. That's something that's been concerning me for a long time as far as the brand of Breckenridge. We just can't be as good of a host just because of the crowds and the staffing. But I wonder also, this has been kind of a unique year as far as lack of early season snow, and with the same amount of people, a little bit less terrain. I just wonder if the dissatisfaction of the town kind of has bled over from the skiing experience. I don't know if that's a possibility or not.
Yeah, Jeffrey, it could be. You know, what I would say though is the year-to-date number is down 5 points. But when we look at just the Christmas holiday, when we actually had really good snow, it was down 16.
Yeah.
Do you know, like Park City and Steamboat, are they seeing that same drop?
We don't know that. I mean, I can reach out to my counterparts there. I mean, we share that stuff, so I can make a few calls and you know, we'll package that in with the executive summary when we send that back to you.
Thanks.
I'm going to assume a lot of it is just because most businesses were tragically understaffed during those couple of weeks.
I think
And
that's.
there's nothing you can do about it. That's just the way it is.
You know, there's nothing you can do about. I just would wonder if there's any sense, and I'm not talking about a mea culpa, but just, I don't know, any sort of mechanism that the BTO has to send a message, you know, we're doing the best we can under the circumstances with the pandemic and the staffing, but just, you know, just want to know we hear you and we're working on it, and we wish it was better, but
yeah,
it's reality all over the world probably.
Well, and I'm also really curious how many of those just say it was just way too busy, just insanely busy. We were in traffic everywhere. We were in lines everywhere. That feeling. I mean, you know, hopefully this pandemic scenario we're going to learn to live with it, but the crowding issue is one that really concerns me.
But busy is exacerbated by lack of staffing.
Oh, for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
so-
They go hand in hand.
Other questions for Lucy, or Lucy, do you have anything else?
The only thing I would add is just to let you know that we do have 2 new board members. Mike Shipley with Country Boy Mine, who many of you know from the Resiliency Committee, joined
great.
their board about a month ago. And Hillary Warner with Great West Lodging is our newest lodging member.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So that's all.
Thanks, Lucy. Anybody have further questions for Lucy? No.
All
Well,
right.
thanks, Lucy.
Thank
Great
you.
job as usual.
You too. Thanks.
All right, continued business. We have a second reading of Council Bill number 34, Series 2021. It's an ordinance amending Chapter 1, Title 4 of the Breckenridge Town Code concerning amenity clubs. Mark?
Thank you, Eric. Good evening, Council. This ordinance would amend Policy 24R in our development code, and it would remove the potential for positive points for recreational and leisure amenities. In addition, it would add a provision that assigns negative points if at some point in the future, some project that had received positive points for providing those amenities proposed to take them away at some point in the future. I'd be glad to answer any questions. That's it.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for staff from the council? Now, anyone in the public wish to comment on this second reading, please use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll let you comment. much time should we be giving for this? Any, I mean, if a hand is raised, we'll jump on it, but if not, we move on. Rick? Rick, you're on mute. I've been waiting months to say that.
Eric, I wouldn't wait. I mean, I think let's wait, 15, 20 seconds or so. And if we have to come back, we can if somebody gets in a little late.
Okay. All right, with that, I close the public, there are none, right? So with that, I close the public comment. Is there a motion?
On second reading, a movie passed Council Bill number 34, Series 2021, the title which has been read into the record.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Any further discussion by council? Roll call, please.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn. You have
Yes.
to unmute yourself, Dennis.
He's on the phone. He can't.
Maybe. Okay.
Yes.
Ah, there we are. Ms. Owens.
Yes.
Sorry, Ms. Owens.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Ms. Sade.
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron.
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes, 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 yes. All right, we have first reading of Council Bill number 1, Series 2022. An ordinance approving a development agreement with Brian Peterson and Danielle O'Grady, 37 Sisler Green.
Mayor and council, this ordinance, if approved, would authorize a development agreement to exempt certain requirements of the development code for the construction of a garage and bonus room in the Lincoln Park neighborhood. The agreement would also approve approximately $34,000 in fee waivers and allow an increase in the maximum capital improvements for the project and for the property. In exchange, the town would receive a public benefit of an 80% AMI deed restricted unit on the property. That 80% AMI would be restricted on the rent. In summary, staff is supportive of this ordinance on first reading.
Thanks, Chapin. Any questions of staff?
Yeah, Chapin, and they are providing a third parking spot.
That's correct. Yeah, it's required by the Lincoln Park Master Plan, and they have room on the property.
Other questions? No, anyone in the public wish to comment on this first reading? Please use the raise hand function at the bottom of the screen. Anyone? All right, with that, public comment is closed. Is there a motion?
First reading, and we would pass Council Bill number 1, Series 2022, the title which has been read into the record.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. In another second, is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ms. Sade.
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. All right, we have first reading of Council Bill number 2, Series 2022. This is an ordinance annexing to the town of Breckenridge certain real property owned by the town of Breckenridge. It's the Blue River Water District parcel 0.402 acres.
Yes, this is a resolution or an ordinance, first reading of an ordinance to annex a small parcel of land that is town-owned on Highway 9. And we acquired the property in early 2000s when that water district dissolved, and unfortunately never actually annexed it into the town. So at this time, we do need to annex it because it is located within the McCain subdivision, and we're in the process of re-subdividing the McCain property to accommodate the Alta Verde 2 project. So this is basically the first reading of an ordinance to annex property that we own that's been in the town for a while. And we're requesting approval of the ordinance to move forward.
Thank you, Lori. Any questions of staff? Anyone in the public wish to comment on this, please use the raise hand function at the bottom of the screen. That public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
On first reading, I move we pass Council Bill number 2, Series 2022, title which has been read into the record.
Second,
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion by council? Roll call, please, Helen.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Ms. Sade,
yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. We have the first reading of Council Bill number 3, Series 2022. It's an ordinance amending the Breckenridge Town Code concerning the town engineering regulations. Mr. McGinnis.
Yeah. This is for the first reading of an ordinance to modify the town code concerning engineering regulations. The ordinance will modify Title 10 of the town code to modify engineering regulations, Title 11 of the town code for administrative changes to match the updated Title 10, and will also adopt the engineering design standards and construction specifications, which is an administrative document governing the engineering regulations. I'm here if you have any more questions or comments on this.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions of staff on this lengthy memo?
I will say, I really like the verbiage in page 73 out of 82. I thought that was really well done and well written, so thank you.
Oh, Jeffrey. Anyone in the public wish to comment on this first reading, please use the raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. Anyone? And with that, public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
The first reading, I move we pass Council Bill number 3, 2022, Series 2022, the title which is read into the record.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion by council? Roll call, please, Helen.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Ms. Sade,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. All right, we have resolution number 1, Series 2022. This is a resolution determining that the April 5, 2022 regular town election shall be a mail ballot election. Helen.
Mayor and council, this resolution, if approved, would set the April 5th, 2022 town council or town of Breckenridge municipal election as a mail ballot election. This is required by section 112.8 of Breckenridge Town Code if we wish to hold an election as a mail ballot election.
Thank you, Helen. Any questions of staff? Anybody in the public wish to comment on this resolution? Yeah, go ahead, Dick.
I have a question. Helen, will there be a box to drop off ballots like the county has out back?
Yes, we always have a box that we place in our lobby. And we don't have it as an overnight box because the security could be breached, but we have it during daytime hours for all of the other regular working days. And then on election day until 7 p.m.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And you can always mail it back.
Sure. If you trust the mail.
All right, thanks, Helen. Anyone in the public wish to comment on this resolution, please use the raise hand function. All right, with that, public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
I move we pass resolution number 1, Series 2022, a resolution determining that the April 5th, 2022 regular town election shall be a mail ballot election.
Second,
The motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Ms. Sade,
yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. We have resolution number 2, Series 2022. This is a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Board of County Commissioners of Summit County, Colorado concerning the Justice Center project. Lori is back.
Yes, it is a resolution to approve an IGA with Summit County. The IGA will spell out the roles and responsibilities of the town and the county on this collaboration, which is the construction of up to 54 apartments on property that is owned by Summit County, known as the Justice Center site. My memo spells out some of the responsibilities, but basically we are agreeing to share 50-50 in the cost of construction and the operation of these apartments, and to agree on the project design, the budget, and certain operational standards for the apartments. It's spelled out in the IGA that we will reach agreement on certain items. So we are requesting the council approve this resolution. The Board of County Commissioners approved the same resolution today.
Thank you, Lori. Any questions for staff? Lori, are we going to have any more input on what's going there? Will we see it again?
Yes, actually, you know, we, according to the IGA, both the town and the county have to agree to the project scope, the design, the layout. And we were just about to engage the architect to really get into schematic design and design development so we can see what fits, what the layout is. You know, right now we're assuming it's 54 units with a 3-story element, but all of that is subject to us reviewing, and it has to go through our entitlement process. So you will see it again. We just haven't engaged the architect to take it to that next level.
Okay, thank you, Lori. Any other questions for staff? Anyone in the public wish to comment on this resolution? Please use the raise hand function at the bottom of the screen. And with that, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion?
I move we pass resolution number 2, series 2022, a resolution approving an IGA agreement with the Board of County Commissioners of Summit County, Colorado concerning the Justice Center project.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Ms. Sade,
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. We have a resolution number 3, series 2022. This is a resolution providing town attorney assistant for municipal prosecution and establishing rates. Kirsten.
Yes, good evening, council. This is a resolution requesting that town council approve the town attorney with the assistant for the function of municipal prosecution and establishing the hourly rate. I do believe that Bob Gregory, who has held that contract, is available if there are any questions. And we're just recommending that you approve the resolution and the continued service.
Thank you. Any questions for Kirsten or Bob?
No, but since he wasn't here earlier when I stated it, I'll just restate how lucky I think we are to have Bob Gregory.
And I would like to say that it's well known that I ran as a law and order platform. So welcome back aboard, Bob.
It sounds like both of you are sucking up to the prosecutor for some reason that I need to delve into.
I'm sure Jeffrey has a reason.
Oh, yeah, he does. All right. Any other questions? Any real questions? Nope. With that, is there anyone in the public wish to comment on this resolution? And Kirsten, thanks for cleaning this up. It was really interesting reading your note on this.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. It was interesting for me too.
Mayor, I think Bob has raised his hand.
Oh, all right, Bob.
All right, there you go. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Bob.
All right. I just wanted to say hi. I also wanted to point out Angie Banskoiku, who's been our our municipal court clerk for the last, well, since I started, probably 7, 8 years. Has done a wonderful job. I'm going to miss her. She's going to be heading over to Silverthorne to be their municipal court clerk. So I just wanted to state how wonderful she's been and how easy she's made my role. So I appreciate all of her service, but looking forward to whoever we find going forward. But thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for the service. Helen, are we posting that? Did we post for that position then?
Yeah, it's posted.
It was posted last week.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like cattle rustling crime down there, isn't there?
Oh, in Silverthorne, yeah.
Silverthorne.
That's most of it.
Yeah.
All right. With that, any other public comment? Doesn't look like it. Is there a motion?
I move we pass resolution number 3, series 2022, resolution approving town attorney assistant, the town attorney assistant municipal prosecution and establishing rates.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? No. Roll call, please, Helen.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Ms. Sade,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. All right. Thank you. We have one other legislative bit to take care of, and that is the appointment for childcare.
Oh, yeah.
Is
I
there
am going to make that movement.
It's a motion.
Motion.
Movement comes later.
I move to appoint Leslie Davis, Johanna Gibbs, Britton Fawcett, and Diana Moraine to 3-year terms on the Breckenridge Child Care Advisory Committee.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions? Anyone in the public wish to comment on these 4 applicants to a 3-year term on the Breckenridge Child Care Advisory Committee? Please use the raise hand function. And with that, I will close the public comment. And any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Carlton,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yes.
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Ms. Sade,
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. All right. Welcome to the 4 of you. If you're listening in, that'll be great. Planning matters. We have planning commission decisions for the 4th of January. Are there any call-ups this evening? With that, planning commission decisions stand as presented. Report of the town manager and staff. Rick?
Mayor and council, I have a couple things I want to go over with you all quickly. First, as you all probably recall, right around the start of COVID, Clear Intentions, which was a private company that was doing the glass hauling, went out of business. And while being able to recycle glass, because we can't commingle it in Breckenridge, is important for us. You know, the town has picked up for the last 1.5 years plus. We have been emptying those glass containers with our public works staff doing that. But with our, we've been trying to move to a more sustainable model. We do have a bid from a local company, Summit Roll-Offs, that will do this process for us. It's about around $150 a year all in to do it. We haven't nailed down the exact fee structure and how we want to incorporate that. But with that being said, I think we need to enter into this. It's my recommendation that I go ahead and enter into this contract with Summit Roll-Off, as we need to shift this out of our town staff hands into a private company so that our public work people who are already understaffed can be, cleaning streets, et cetera, that needs to get done. So, we'll come back to you, obviously, to approve whatever this fee model is going to look like. But if you're all supportive of that, I just want to move forward with that. So if I see a bunch of head nods there to go ahead and move forward with that contract. Okay, thank you.
And Rick, I think maybe Dick and I could take this to the Restaurant Association too, to sort of once you start figuring out how you want to approach it.
Yeah, let James and maybe Jesse, let's weigh in a little bit before you start maybe going too public with some of that stuff. I don't want to overstep what work is being done right now.
Okay.
I want to let you know that I think all of our departments are doing a great job in trying to get those basic services provided. You heard from transit, there's things we're struggling. The rec center, they're trying to prioritize with their limited staffing. We are going to see some reductions in public skating hours out at the ice rink. Right now, we're prioritizing organized games over public skate. And I support that decision with them. Just in case you hear any comments, we have reduced some of those public skating hours in order to try to meet the bigger needs of high school games, summit youth, et cetera, with those things going on out there. So far on our short-term rental renewals, we closed out the year with 4,576 STR licenses. So as we have started renewing those under this new fee structure, I believe that started on the 28th of December. To date, we have 2,221. So not quite half yet, but 40% of those so far have renewed. And none of those are the big ones, like the Beaver Runs and the BGVs yet. So that, that'll be a big chunk when that happens. We actually have a call with BGV tomorrow to discuss renewal of the STR stuff. So that's where we're at with that particular process. And, we are getting a little bit of pushback from some people. Limited, less than a handful right now. Those locals that rent out one room all winter long, and but they have to, if they have a 4-bedroom house, they have to pay the full license fee on the 4 bedrooms, not just a 1-bedroom they rent. And we told you that's the way the process was going to be. That's the way we've always done it. But now that the licensing is more, a couple of people are pushing back, but it's a very small percentage. And lastly, Eric, did we want to do something on the fire relief up in Boulder County as a community? I know you had mentioned it, and I don't know if you've been able to talk to other council members, or we just want to decide now. If we do something, I think there's 2 organizations that have been highly recommended. They've been vetted. BTO put them out in their local newsletter. That's the Boulder County Wildfire Fund, and the other one is the Sister Carmen Community Center. And in looking at the Sister Carmen Center, it looks like it operates a little bit like our FERC organization. And so that would certainly be my recommendation. And maybe we do some money to both of them.
How's everybody feel about
Yes.
helping out locally?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
How much are we talking, Rick?
We didn't do as much as I know you had approved for the tornado relief, and only because I wasn't really as comfortable with the organizations and where it was set up, and we ended up doing the Western Kentucky one that the governor had sent. And we did 10,000. This is very in our backyard, local here. So, I think if you want 10,000 to each organization, that's fine. I think that'd be a very generous donation on behalf of the town of Breckenridge.
Would 20,000 to one make a bigger difference, or is it better to spread it out like that?
I like a little bit of both of them, so I'd spread it out. Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody good with that?
I'm all for that. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
All right.
And do we want to do a little something for the Rupert family who were longtime educators here in our community? I know they don't live here now, but they lost everything. And maybe $1,000 or something like that to them.
Rick, is that something that,
Well, that's entirely up to you guys. I know they did. I think I looked early on when I think Wendy Wolf was sharing that on a Facebook page, and there was a GoFundMe page that was set up, and that they had seen some pretty good contributions coming into that. But
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Rick. Last time I looked, it was up to $60,000.
yeah,
But you know, they were out of town when the fire hit their home, so they never had an opportunity to get anything out.
no,
But it's just
They
a
taught,
thought.
they taught up here, Dick?
Yeah, both my sons had Mike as an elementary school teacher, and Laura was a administrator. She worked at Carriage House and a reading specialist. She did all kinds of stuff.
yeah, Mike taught my son also.
Yeah, I'd be into kicking in something to them individually.
I think $1,000 is appropriate if that's what you want. I think it says something. All right.
Is the rest of the council okay with that?
So, well, I don't mean to be, I mean, this, yes, I support this, but I'm curious about how do we go about this to make it equitable for other people who have contributed to our community? Like, I feel like we know this Rupert family, and that's what makes it feel like it's hitting home and that sort of thing. But how do we do this so that other people who have contributed in other ways that might not be as visible, how do we make this equitable?
I don't
I mean,
know.
I agree with what Aaron's saying. I think it's a little bit tough just because the 7 of us don't know other people. I mean, there are lots of people who lost their homes in this community, and these people just happen to know one of us. Feels a little bit. I mean, I personally like the kind of equity of giving to the two organizations that can benefit.
And I don't mean to make this a negative. I don't mean to say we shouldn't give to them. I just, if we do, I'd like there to be some kind of mechanism that if somebody lost their house who participated in this community in another way, that might be an equal contribution but less visible, what's the avenue there?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't either, and honestly, I'd like to keep this rather simple for us.
Okay.
So I don't want to get it, and I'll let you all decide if it's something that you guys are always so generous, I think, in helping people. And so when you want to do these things, I don't try to steer you away from it, but sometimes these particular ones like this, that the single family out, makes me a little more uncomfortable than doing the group organization. I get it. So, but.
And I'm okay with, I mean, your point's a good one, Aaron. They have, I mean, the generosity of our community and the Boulder community has stepped up big for them. So I'm not, I'm okay if we want to pull back. I mean, because your point's good. I get it.
You know what, going forward, I think maybe we should adopt some kind of plan that we follow every time, that just sort of states what we do in these circumstances, so we don't have to have this uncomfortable conversation ever again while I'm
Yeah.
here.
And I think it would be great if there was a fund for individuals that people could apply for and just to even the playing field a little.
I think it's a great point, Aaron. I think it is something we should talk about at some point, though, because honestly, this stuff's not going away. This will not be the last fire on the Front Range or anywhere that we, want to do something generous about. So why don't, with those comments, why don't we just do the 10,000 to each organization that we talked about, and then at some meeting in the future, let's have a broader discussion about how we'd like to just sort of have a framework around this from now on.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. We have reports. of the mayor and council. And of course, I don't have anything in front of me about who does what. So Kelly, what do you got? Anything?
No, we really covered childcare, but thank you guys for supporting that. I know it's going to mean a lot to the parents and the staff, as Dick really smartly pointed out.
Thanks, Kelly. Aaron?
There hasn't been a meeting since.
I'll step up with a BHA, Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis.
We're fast approaching the Barney Ford 200th anniversary. A Ford snow sculpture will be featured during the International Snow Sculpture Championship, and we have a new permanent exhibit in the Ford Museum, which will debut later this month. Barney Ford Day will kick off Black History Month and include a proclamation from the governor's office, which will be read on the House floor of the Capitol under the stained glass portrait of Barney Ford. That's it.
That's cool. That's really cool, actually.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and I can piggyback with Social
Please.
Equity Committee because at the top of our meeting, Larissa with the Heritage Alliance, she came and told us about these different really great efforts with Barney Ford Day. And I think some commissioners are possibly working with the BHA to maybe present to elementary schools. I'll check in where that is, but that whole effort is great. And he's such a monumental figure here to celebrate it locally too. Also with social equity, we did have Scott come and talk a little bit about the history of Trail of Tears. So that'll be on the agenda next meeting for further discussion. Again, explaining the history of that trail, but again, the sensitive nature of using those terms that reference a tragic event. Otherwise on social equity, we're working on nailing down our goals. So next meeting we'll have another just kind of strategic discussion about prioritization there. I think I hit everything from social equity. Dick or Aaron, anything else?
No, I think you did. I just echo how cool the Barney Ford thing is. It's the more you study about the man, the more impressive he is.
Yeah, same. I echo.
All right. Dick, anything else?
BCA did not have a meeting. In housing, we did.
All right. Pro Tem, you got anything for me, man?
Just one thing. Well, we had the housing meeting today. We'll get a kind of debrief next council meeting, but I want to kind of throw add a girl to Chris Ann Knish. That 60th Breckenridge 60th celebration of the ski area upstairs at the Welcome Center is amazing. So from the Breckenridge Heritage Alliance, Chris Ann Knish, I guess, put it together, and it really is. It's worth the trip. I went midday. No one was there. Not no one was there, but I felt safe. I don't know how people felt around me, but I felt okay. So yeah, check it out. You'll love it.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeffrey. Okay. Anybody have any other matters?
Hey, Eric, just a reminder, we should have an answer in the next couple of weeks on the Colorado Revitalization Fund, which was that grant application for Milne Park.
Oh, yes.
That was the one-time pandemic related grant opportunity for cultural and historic preservation for shovel-ready projects. So hearing
Cool.
something pretty soon on that.
That'd be great. All right. Any other matters? Anyone?
I just wanted to point out how hard everybody's working in our community and how tough it is right now. I know, I'm sure as you've all seen, you know, some signs of burnout already that usually you see in March. And I really feel for our community right now. And that was evidenced in, you know, our steps to help childcare. I can't think of anything, but if anybody can think of how we can help our community right now and our workforce, I think I would love to look at some ideas. I don't know what that would be, but.
No, I think it's worth thinking about at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see the burnout in my eyes? Is that what you're talking about?
Your glasses reflect.
Yes. Yeah, it's been tough. This was a tough 3 weeks because it was super busy and everybody was super short staffed. So, I mean, everybody worked a ton. So, I mean, I know just in my little corner of the world, our December was the biggest December ever by like 18%, which is crazy for a mature business like ours. And our staffing was like 70%. So it was rough.
Wow.
But this last couple of days has been a little slower. So it's been sort of nice, right, Dick? Catch a breath.
Yeah, I echo everything everybody said, man. Hats off.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of people working really hard.
All right. With that, anything else? Thanks for that, Aaron. Okay. We got a meeting in 2 weeks. It's nice to see you all tonight, even though it's on Zoom. I'd rather be in person, but got some work done, and Happy New Year, everyone. Great to see you.
So,
Thank you.
that-
Happy New Year.
you guys,
We are adjourned.
thanks.
Bye.
Right all.
Hey, Rick, I'll see you back. Cool.
Okay.